December the 3rd, 2020. So we'll start the pre-meeting for the Murray City Planning Commission. And first up tonight, approval of minutes. And boy, what minutes they were. So, I wasn't there, obviously, but did anybody have any concerns or issues that we need to discuss pre-meeting about the minutes? Okay, Travis?
I have one. So on page 14, it's the
God, that
paragraph
sounds scary.
that begins
Page 14.
right. It's the paragraph that begins with Mr. Nay. The last sentence says, building constructed 100 years ago were not built to last. I think I was trying to be a little more specific to what was left of downtown Murray. And these buildings in particular were not built to last. However, the Carnegie Library was. So if we could have something that mentions that's where I'm coming from.
I know what I heard there, Travis.
Well, I recall mentioning like historic buildings on Main Street downtown versus
if a building lasts 100 years, I think it was built to last.
Did you want the comment about the Carnegie building included?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it shows the quality of construction versus maybe some of what we ended up with.
Do we need to, can we do that just editorially, or do we need to specify that in the meeting?
Those are just edits.
Editorial? Okay, that's great.
Doesn't have
anything else on the meetings or on the minutes? I'm sorry.
Nope, they look good.
Okay, that was quite a meeting. And you know what? Before we go any further, I want to thank you guys. I just had a discombobulated day that last meeting, and it made my life a heck of a lot simpler. It's the reason I'm here tonight. Because just too much going on. So thanks to Scott for taking over for me. I really appreciate it. So.
Well, Phil, we're getting kicked off this in a few more meetings.
I know.
So it's fine. It's the least I can do.
The clock is ticking, and my beard's getting grayer, and you're getting shorter.
And we're not even going to be able to have our Jim Harlan Memorial sweaters presented to us.
Well, I know, but,
in person.
I've got my Mr.
Maybe in 2 years we'll have to be brought back and have our sweaters presented to us.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, no problem, Phil.
So you're gonna have to explain more about Jim Harlan and.
He always wore a sleeveless sweater. Always.
Yeah. Jim Harlan
sleeveless sweater.
Yeah, Jim Harlan and GL always would have these sweater vests on, and so when Jim was kicked off the committee, I just kind of felt like it'd be good to present him with like a Murray, sweater vest or something for his service. But
who was the other guy that you?
GL Critchfield.
GL Critchfield. He's now the city attorney for Murray.
Yeah,
he was the assistant city attorney at the time.
Sorry, Chair, that I took this the wrong direction. We got a lot of items.
You're just fine. You're fine. We've got plenty of time here, right? So, next item: conflict of interest. Everybody feels good about their positions tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Great. Approval of finding of fact. We've got 5 of them, and Sue said that she's ready to, make that motion. Everyone's okay with the way the finding of fact read.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we'll get into the meat of the agenda. And, since we've got so much tonight, I really want to try and stay as brief as we can on each agenda item and devote whatever questions we have to the general meeting. So our first one is a conditional use permit, B&B Motors at 4335 South Main. Who's going to be doing that one?
That'll be me tonight. I'll just go quickly. So this is just, as you said, at that address, 4335. They have about a 1,700 square foot unit. Want to do some auto sales. It's largely going to be in the warehouse area. they did say, parking will be located or for display in the warehouse area. And then also there's that on page 3 of the staff report kind of outlines the gated car area. We'll have a few more. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot of comments, concerns. The landscaping, as you guys probably noticed if you drove by, the front landscaping, there really isn't space for it at all. It just isn't possible. So I know that's typically something we really like to hammer home, but on developments like this, it's just not possible. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that?
Are you going to have an image of the Edison Street frontage that shows to Paris RV?
No, but I could have one.
I was unable to drive by. I just want to confirm there is not currently a sidewalk in place on the Edison Street frontage.
No.
So I'm probably going to hammer home on that one. So just FYI.
Okay.
All right. Very fair.
Hey, Zach, a question. This is two meetings in a row or 2 out of 3 where we have a property now that we're like, landscaping, it's probably not going to work. You know, it just had a thought. Is there something in the code that or should be put in there that basically says like exceptions or things so that it doesn't seem like it's an arbitrary decision, but that something that is more codified?
Right now we don't have any exceptions, but it's something we can look at. It's this one specifically. It's just coincidence that the past couple have worked out that way.
Okay.
This one, it physically cannot. We couldn't do a car backing distance and any landscaping in that area and still have adequate drive access there.
Well, I do think it's a good idea, and I will say this in the general meeting that staff is setting themselves up for for problems in the future. I won't be here to defend you, but it's better to have something codified, an option codified, as Scott said, that you can have the discretion because things tend to get ugly.
I agree, and that's why I brought it up. I'd love to see the staff take that on as almost like, hey, under certain circumstances. And I don't think you have to say, when there's not adequate width, but I just think it's probably a good exercise to look at. I mean, really, in my 9 years doing this, there hasn't been a lot that have come up. Right. But I agree with Phil that it looks arbitrary, and there's nothing on the code for this. So just a food for thought.
I agree. And just because I don't want to say this in the general meeting, I just want to say it now. I don't know. Could we word it such that it doesn't sound like we're choosing parking over landscaping? It makes it sound like, that's what we're doing. But
I was going to say, Lisa, it is what we do. That's kind of where we draw the line is parking and access went out over the landscape buffer along a public road. And that's really the only times I can think of like 4 in my memory of doing things here when we haven't required the landscaping because there isn't physical space to add it without removing parking. And so we haven't done it there.
Well, and you know what, on the other side of things, Jared, we can deny the damn thing because there's no room for landscaping. So it's denied.
That's the problem is that we go back to, and it's a whole big thing, and we'll talk about it probably, and we can start looking at that issue as part of training when we do training in January, February, but it's the rough proportionality rule in the state code and LEDMA about conditional uses. The real question that I've always had is whether we should be on land use changes only imposing the improvements at all. Most cities don't, frankly. Conditional use permits that are new and really big changes that cause changes to parking needs or access needs where they're going to have to do something anyway, then you can get your stuff. But other times, cities have shied away from requiring full improvements or new improvements to meet current standards when it's an existing building that was done under different standards. It's the rough proportionality rule. We should talk about it probably more in January, February.
I agree. And just for your own protection, I really think that it's something the city needs to look at. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Well, let's move on to subdivision review. Item number 5, advanced healthcare at 666 West, 5300 South, and
Okay.
on Allendale Drive.
Yep. So this is me again. This one is really basic. It's pretty much just drawing a line between the 5300 South frontage and the rest of the property that fronts onto Allendale. The applicants would like to just split that off. If you remember in the Stellar Senior Living Plan, and I think it's in the staff report as well, it kind of shows they didn't even really address it because it was their intent to develop that separately. So they are planning. That's what they'd like to do is to sell that off or develop it in addition to another piece of property. So
it's a lot split essentially. So yeah,
it is. Yeah, and state code now just requires that we take these little dinky lot splits to you guys. So
okay, no problem.
This one's really easy. So if you have any questions,
everybody okay with moving to number 6?
I am, but I have a question about it.
Sure.
I didn't quite figure out how deep that property is. It's at least as deep as the Holiday gas station on the east corner, and the other gas station, which isn't a gas station anymore, on the west corner. But do you think it's deep enough for other businesses? I know they have an access off of Allendale, which means they don't necessarily have to have an access off of 53rd, but
from what I understand from the applicants themselves, their intent is to develop their it's about 150 feet deep looking at it. So there would be enough. But from what I understand, the applicants are working with one or both of the property owners that own the gas stations there, potentially purchasing those. I don't know if they are still working on that or not, but that will be part of any future things.
And again, we can discuss that in the general meeting here. So let's move to number 6, Spring Creek Cove Investments. Once again, this comes before us. So
this one? I'll be reviewing this tonight. This is just the final subdivision review. Preliminary was granted earlier this year, I think just before COVID struck or right after COVID struck. This is the subdivision off Wesley Road. You've seen it several different times in several iterations. This one looks like it's going to stick. 15 lots. It is PUD. The PUD isn't really used for lot sizes. It's used for a couple of different little tweaks to setbacks to keep them out of the conservation area along the creek, clean up the creek. They've gotten all their permits in place and the delineation of the wetland, et cetera. The one thing that is still missing that will be a condition carried forward for the final before recordation is approval from the Tanner Ditch company to make sure that that's all worked out. To get this closed out before the end of the year. We have every reason to be confident that they're going to finish it, and they wouldn't go through this if they didn't have that same confidence, because it'll be a condition for recordation of the final. So that's really.
So I notice on this one, so for a final subdivision, no public comment needed.
No public notices.
Only for the initial.
Only for the preliminary. They're supposed to. That's where we do a lot of that sort of public comment input and try to answer those things for them before final. Right. So the public stuff was all make sure that the wetlands are delineated and everything's handled correctly. So should be pretty close.
Although Jared, don't we traditionally still open this up for public comment today?
Yeah, just in case.
No, not at all.
If you want, but it's not
in the agenda as a public comment.
Right.
We do not open it up for public comment.
Well, and we don't notice it, so there shouldn't be anybody looking to comment tonight on it.
You can't do it if it's not been in the minute or the notice of the meeting.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, we've always just kind of done it historically, just more of as a courtesy, but that's a good point, Ned.
Well, and it would have been approved all in one agenda item had it been a smaller lot subdivision too. Sure. So they just exceed the number.
Yep.
Okay.
But they did answer all the questions from preliminary as we went through them, and looks like everything's ready to go for us. So if you're comfortable with it, we're I'll leave it at that.
Good to know. Okay. Number 7, Clovercrest subdivision amended on Morning Dew and 2 lots on Morning Dew.
This will be me as well. Susan did all the work on it, but she was on vacation when it actually hit. So Clovercrest is a lot line adjustment for one gentleman to buy a triangular piece, 800 square feet or so, of the backyard of the side yard of another gentleman and add it to his rear yard. And that's literally all it is. Doesn't cause any violations of setbacks or problems. It just
no public comment or anything on this.
No, we had one lady call. She owns a property next door to it. The only comment we had was a lady that owns the property next door called and said, "They've got my name wrong. That's not me, and I own that piece of property." And it's just the surveyor used an old data sheet or something. So
okay,
that was literally the only comment.
Good. Good to make things right. All right.
Exactly.
These are both my neighbors. Nothing underhanded about this.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Number 8, the Boyer Company, 861 East Winchester, aka the R.C. Willey property.
Right. So Susan will be representing this one tonight. I'm just seeing if she's paying attention. Just kidding. So this is R.C. Willey.
Myself wrong.
This is a zone change request and general map amendment, obviously, for the R.C. Willey site. I think people have been aware of it for a month or so. It came up fast, came to us quickly. I'm trying to think of what I want to tell you that's not in the report. R.C. Willey is closing. I know that some of the comments that we've received, and you guys, they didn't come in time for you guys to get them in your packet, so we're going to read them into the record, and I've had a number of people sign up to speak as well. A lot of them, or at least one of them, mentioned not knowing that R.C. Willey was closing. So you want to be aware of that. We didn't put anything about R.C. Willey closing in the notices. Obviously, that's not our place, really. But R.C. Willey is closing, regardless of what happens with this zone change tonight. And the other thing to be aware of is that there's a lot of there's the same kind of concerns that you would expect. It's concerns about height and concerns about differences in people looking into my yard, et cetera. How is this going to work? We did get a couple of questions that were just questions. People emailed and said, well, what's going to go there if it's changed? And we don't know, candidly. R.C. Willey is considering a mixed use site where it'd be like Van Winkle Crossing in a way, with commercial on 9th East and Winchester and townhomes behind that. But we don't know that they would stay townhomes. That's what they intend to do. And the only market hotter than high-rise multifamily right now is townhomes. So it's very likely that that's what they'll build, but we can't promise that. It's not something we can do. There was another comment to be aware of that talks about, it's a reasonable comment, that talks about making sure that when a development comes through, it should be something that's birthday caked, that where you try in terms of looking at the proposal of anything that does come to keep the height as far away from the residential as possible. Well, that's what the code's looking for anyway. And so it's easy to kind of translate that. But there's a lot of questions about people's concerns are, well, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to take its place. And you're all very well versed in that. We don't talk about we could talk about what could take its place. No. So do you have any questions about Boyer that you want to get out?
No, I have some comments that I'll save for the public meeting, but no, not right now.
Okay.
I just got one quick question.
Sure.
Is there a reason why we're not going to preserve the 9th East frontage as neighborhood residential?
As RNB?
Yes.
Well, that's a good question.
Because we've talked about that and defended that so much.
Yeah, that particular, in the general plan, we didn't call that corner out for RNB. All the rest of it is. But R.C. Willey was there. And so it was left in the general plan as just commercial and not residential neighborhood business. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's not something you could consider, because you could, but it's not what's in the plan right now. So you'd have to make a change for that as well, to do RNB. And then, and I'll be honest, when you have deep properties and we talk about RNB, neighbors aren't any more comfortable. They have issues with that. We just went through the Brad Reynolds Twin Homes development. That was a deep property, all RNB, and we allowed twin homes and duplexes, and they weren't happy with with that either. This corner is a lot different than the corner of 525 or 625 or whatever that is in Winchester. This is a corner with good commercial potential and high traffic. And frankly, I think mixed use would do just as good a job of buffering it. Well, it won't do as gentle a job of buffering it as R&B would, but it's better for the city writ large as mixed use than R&B at this corner because of the size of the property.
And
Okay.
can I jump in real quick before you get on to the next item?
Sure, please.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So I wanted to bring this up because I noticed it earlier on, and I had talked to Melinda about it. I'm sorry, Jared, if I hadn't. I don't know if Melinda's talked to you about it yet or not, but we've kind of talked about it briefly. So there is somebody registered to possibly speak tonight, and then they also did provide a letter. And so we were wondering, I think we wanted to go the route of having them choose whether they wanted to state in person what their comment was, or if they want their comment read into the record.
I would prefer that because otherwise we could be here.
It's just double
until
dipping.
midnight.
Yeah, we don't, unless you feel very differently, I don't allow them to have us read their email and then they get another 3 minutes. So I think we handle that with asking whoever it is if they want us to read their email into the record and call it good, if they would like to read their own email and they get 3 minutes, or if they want to summarize what their email was.
I like that because giving them double the opportunity is not fair.
No, it's not.
And I would make that comment possibly, Chair Markham, just before you open up the public hearing. Just say, if you have submitted an email, we can either read that in, or if you would like to speak to your item.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then will we be limiting the emails to 3 minutes?
No, we have not been doing that, and I don't want to start now.
Yeah, we've never done that.
I realize that. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else have questions about that one? Or
I did notice that it says 861 West. Is it really? I thought it was 861
No, it's not west.
it's east. Sorry about that.
It's
Yeah,
east.
and I don't know if I didn't see it anywhere else. I just saw it on the cover sheet. 861 West, Winchester.
Yeah, that should say east. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And
I went out and tried to
on
find
the
it.
agenda, it is east on both of them.
I got lost. I went to 861 West and I thought, I guess I'm not going there.
Scott, you've been in the weeds your whole life. What's new?
And I've given plenty of money to R.C. Willey, so.
It's in the motion, just so you know, whoever reads the motion, it's in the motion.
Is it west in the motion also?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that, you guys.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. Our
Jared's
last one.
directional dyslexic.
Yeah.
Our last two items deal with the sports mall property at 5445 South 900 East. So here we go again.
And this is also me. So let me give you the rundown on the sports mall. Like other than the staff report, the sports malls had a few tough years and they were ready to close their doors anyway. And COVID sped that up, and they've decided they want to sell the property. It would not be a repurposing of the building. The buyers they've had interested are looking at tearing down the structures and doing a new mixed use project that would have mixed use on 9th East and again, townhomes probably in the rear. So that project, again, we don't know for sure what it would be, but that's what's been proposed conceptually so that you're aware. We haven't had email comments from the neighborhood about the sports mall, like we had with R.C. Willey, but we don't know who's registered to speak or if people will be emailing during the meeting at all or as well. So
Sure.
Bruce Broadhead, one of the property owners, will be on deck tonight as the applicant. If you have questions for him, but that's basically what's going on there as well. They're asking for mixed use instead. It represents a similar property, a large purpose-built building that has lost its purpose, and mixed use kind of makes sense as the new commercial. So in some ways, I want you to, a lot of times we worry about losing all of our commercial. We're giving up our commercial land, et cetera. Some of these purpose-built boxes that were done in the years that they were done have lost their market. And so I don't want to look at it, we don't look at it anyway as staff, as losing or giving up our commercial. We look at it as a transmogrification of our commercial. It's the way that commercial is going to be developed in the future and is being developed all over the valley and the country, really. And that we have some interest in it here, we're probably lucky. It lets us keep commercial going as opposed to sitting vacant. So
Jared, just as a heads up also, I plan to ask you or staff, whoever is involved with each agenda item on these rezones, what is currently allowed and what could potentially be allowed with the rezone. And I really want people to have a clear picture of what could be there and what may be there.
That's a great thought, Phil. Maybe I'll just read right from the report, the sections that we do on that, and just read it for the public as well.
All right. Thank you.
If that's all right.
All right. Well, we've got a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any pertinent comments or go ahead, Lisa?
I just have two real quick things. My husband, I don't know what to do with this information. My husband works for Jordan Valley, and he walked down the stairs while we were talking about item number 6, and he says Jordan Valley has already approved water to that job. But then this week there was some problem with the sewer and the water being too close together for standards. Is that something the city will just figure out and they'll be okay?
That's up to the developer to figure out, I believe.
Yeah, so we've got will serves from the different utility providers, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're guaranteeing they can do it for cheap or for what they've quoted, but that they can accomplish service to those 15 units. Yeah. So if it costs the developer a little more, I'm crying on the inside.
Okay. My other question real quick was, kind of a comment maybe. I think the concern from the public who's watching, pay attention with all these mixed use feel to me like they're in the right spot, except we have 400 units-ish going into Kmart, 400 units-ish into Sports Mall, 400 units into RC.
We don't have but Lisa, we don't have a project for RC Willie or the Sports Mall. We can't talk about that.
I know it could be anything. I'm just stating the city is looking at proactive at the traffic study along 900 East with all the new builds collectively, not just one that we're talking about individually today, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point because the potential is there. You're right for additional kinds of unit counts that are similar. Because the market is shifting toward townhomes, I think it'll be less actually in this moment, but still the potential is there. And we are looking at, I think I mentioned in the staff reports, there's the citywide master transportation plan is being updated. And they've asked us as planning to participate with engineering and tell them where we think the growth is coming. And we gave them all these sites and said, we think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see requests for additional high density housing along these sites. We didn't think they'd come in 2 years, but we thought they'd be there in 5 to 10. So here we are.
So it's not a surprise. We're thinking ahead. We're ready for it.
Yeah, well, we're not as ready for it as we should be, but we're getting ready for it. And it's good that we've already started. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Good question.
Let's take just a 2-minute break and then we're in general meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey,
Travis, go ahead. Travis, go.
I can wait till the meeting. It's fine. Take your time.
Is it a hard question,
absolutely.
Travis? Because if it's a hard question, don't wait till the meeting.
And my question,
it's not.
My question for Melinda is she in somewhere tropical? I'm looking out your window and it's light and there's palm trees and I'm like,
it's bright and sunshiny and looks nice.
You're not in Murray.
You are incorrect. That is actually the view from my office.
Whoa, not right now.
It is a virtual background, but it is my office.
Okay.
So
nice.
I haven't been to the tropical part of Murray. That looks very nice.
That's the nicest angle out her window. If you're looking at it from another angle, it looks like Russia or something.
That's the southern part of Murray, Scott.
It must be. The west side of Murray is the frozen tundra. Melinda has like the Hawaii part, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right now, all you would see is just darkness. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You've got 1 minute for a potty break, people.
Hey, Bryant.
Yes.
Will you call me?
Okay.
Do you have my mobile?
Your mobile? I don't know.
Okay, I'll message it to you. Will you call me?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
That was a short 1 minute break. All right. Are we all back? We're ready to go? Looks like it. All right. Well, with that, I'm Phil Markham, Chairman of the Murray City Planning Commission meeting, and I would like to open this December 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Murray City Planning Commission meeting. And before we get started, I have an opening statement that I would like to read. As the chair of the Murray City Planning Commission, I, Phil Markham, have determined that due to infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus, I guess, novel, holding an in-person meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those in attendance. Under those circumstances, Utah Code 52-4-207, paragraph 4, allows for electronic meetings to be held without an anchor location, so long as the public has an opportunity to view the meeting and submit public comments. We are holding tonight's Planning Commission meeting via video conference, and the meeting is being live streamed at www.murraycitylive.com. If you have a public comment to submit to the Planning Commission, please do so via email at planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. Thank you. All right, and with that opening statement, I would like to begin our meeting this evening. And we have a few business items to take care of prior to getting into the meat of the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the Thursday, November 19th, 2020 meeting. And has everyone had a chance? Oh, you know what? I'm delving way into the meat of the agenda right now. I have not introduced our board, and I apologize for that. I would like to introduce our Planning Commission board this evening. Scott Woodbury, the Vice Chair, Travis Ney, Maren Patterson, Sue Wilson, Ned Hacker, Lisa Milkevich, and staff. We have Jared Hall, Zach Smallwood, and Melinda Greenwood here, as well as Susan Hill. Bryant Farnsworth is the Assistant City Attorney that is monitoring the meeting as well. And prior to starting the meeting, I'd like to just lay out a little bit of how the format will work. We will go through the agenda items, and each agenda item will be introduced. We'll have discussion by the commission members. We will allow the applicant to present their additional information if there is any. And then we'll bring it back to the public to have public comment involving each agenda item. Now, it comes to the Planning Commission, and we will vote either approval or negatively for the agenda item. And so with that, we'll get started for this evening. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. I do want to mention that. And we did have one question, one clarification this evening, that if you have submitted a public comment via email, that comment will be read into the minutes, but you will not be allowed an additional 3 minutes to present your opinions. So if you have submitted an email comment, that will be read into the meeting, and you are not allowed an additional time to verbalize those feelings as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. All right, are we all set then? Did I stumble through that well enough? All right, here we go. Approval of minutes. The first one is Thursday, November 19th, 2020. Has everyone had a chance to read those minutes?
Yes.
Any changes? We did discuss one minor editorial change in our pre-meeting that did not deal with content. Other than that, does anyone have any substantive changes? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the Thursday, November 19th, 2020 Planning and Zoning meeting with the changes as noted.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Lisa Milkevich to approve the minutes of the Thursday, November 19th, 2020 meeting. Those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Conflict of interest. Do any members of the Planning Commission have any conflict of interest this evening with any items on the agenda?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay, very good, thank you. And approval of findings of fact. We have 5 findings of fact this evening to consider. We have the Sacred Energy Bed and Breakfast, Creative Learning Academy, Bonneview Apartments, Big Dog's Stitch and Screen, and Thomas Accessory Dwelling Unit that have previously been dealt with by the Commission. Does anyone have any comments concerning those items? Okay,
No.
I would be open for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the findings of fact for a conditional use permit for Janet while doing business as Sacred Energy Bed and Breakfast located at 284 and 296 East, 4500 South. A conditional use permit for Jessica Lloyd doing business as Creative Learning Academy at 5979 South Fashion Boulevard. A conditional use permit to Eric and Dan Bishop for the Bonneview apartment project located at 4955, 4984, 4994, 5002, 5020 South Commerce Drive. A conditional use permit for Marnie Sanchez doing business as Big Dog Stitch and Screen to operate a screen printing business in the MU zone at 312 West Vine Street. And lastly, a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit at the subject property owned by Brooke and Kathy Thomas, located at 5112 South Honey Clover Court.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ned. I have a motion by Sue Wilson, a second by Ned Hacker to approve the findings of fact as listed by Sue Wilson. And Sue, I want to commend you for your motion. It was thorough and well read. Please, those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. All right. The reason I did that, I didn't want to read everything that Sue wrote, that Sue mentioned, because she did such a great job. I would just butcher it. So we'll move on. All right. Our next item on the agenda is a conditional use permit for B&B Motors at 4335 South Main Street, a used auto sales business. Zach Smallwood will present this to us this evening.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll see the Planning Commission PowerPoint.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So this is agenda item number 4, B&B Motors, requesting a conditional use permit for an auto dealership at the property addressed 4335 South Main Street. And now it's not, there we go. Okay, it's located right here off Edison Street and Main Street, just north of the Deseret Industries, if you're familiar with that area. They are proposing to go into this unit here, located about here. It's a 1,700 square foot unit located in the CD zone. We do allow auto dealerships to be in the CD zone, subject to obtaining conditional use permit. So here is the floor plan of the area. As you can see, it has 3 offices, a restroom, hallway, and a large 812 square foot warehouse space. The applicant is proposing to have 2 employees there with a maximum of 5 vehicles at any given time. He anticipates that approximately 3 of them will be located within the warehouse space, and then the remaining 2, which I kind of tried to overlay this a little bit, will be located in this yard space here, which has access to another unit over here, but 4335 is right here. We are requiring that the applicant work with us and the property owner to stripe new stalls here. There were no striping when I went out and visited the property. So I would ask that be, that is a condition that's listed in the conditionally, listed in your conditions. Let's see. Other than that, we are requesting or recommending that the Planning Commission approve this conditional use permit to allow the vehicle sales business at 4335 South Main Street, subject to the 9 conditions below. Any questions for staff at this point?
No, it's pretty clear on my end. Any questions? Yes, please, Travis.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the Edison Street frontage a little bit. So at least based on what we see here in the aerial, there doesn't appear to be any sidewalk infrastructure along there. This area is very much an emerging piece of property. And so to leave condition number 1 stating that unless there's at least $5,000 of site improvements, that shouldn't be completed. I just feel like this is one of those times where this gap in the pedestrian experience, especially considering that this is the intermediary space between the track station and the State Street frontage, it's time to fill this gap. If it doesn't take place now, when is it going to take place with a property like this? This is a property that's not going to have a high number of turnover opportunities, especially right along here. We fought so hard to get Paris RV to complete all of their infrastructure changes. I just feel like saying that, putting the condition of number 1 saying that they have to do at least $5,000 before that's considered, I think this is the time to consider that. So I would love to hear other people's opinion on that.
Travis, you make a compelling case, and I do agree with you on this. And Zach, could we make an additional condition detailing that improvement on this property prior to the conditional use?
In all honesty, I don't believe we can. Only because that is in engineering, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but I believe that's engineering standard that we can't require those improvements unless $5,000 has been met, and that's when that kicks in. But Jared, am I understanding that right?
You're right, Zach. That is an engineering requirement, and it's their practice to say, as the engineering division, when a project costs exceed $5,000, that's when we ask for the replacement of damaged or the installation of missing curb, gutter, sidewalk, other improvements like that. But it is engineering standard. That's not necessarily to say that I don't think that means necessarily the Planning Commission couldn't require that. It's just that engineering usually requires it and passes that requirement on the Planning Commission. when those conditions are met. If you felt like there was a reason in this case, like Travis is pointing out, to say we really do, it's probably within your purview. You need to tie it to a reason to do it, though. You want to add that finding that there's been a lot of work put into getting this these improvements on Edison, and that this ought to be done. That this piece ought to be finished.
Travis, I think you make once again. I think you make a compelling case, and I would encourage you to, if you see fit, to make an amendment to add this condition if you're in favor of approval.
Jared, can I ask another question?
Sure.
I support Travis. I feel he made a strong statement. I support his thought process, being a little bit analytical and number wise. I'd like to understand. I feel like those stipulations are put in place based on cost and burden. Like if that sidewalk is going to cost, $100,000, and they're a small business, it's going to be, making $4,000 of improvements. I mean, do we know a cost benefit analysis? Do we know how much it costs?
I don't know the hard numbers on what the cost benefit analysis is, but that is where it comes from. Yes. So a project that isn't going to require $5,000 worth of improvements usually won't bear the costs of making those kinds of installations or repairs to curb and gutter and sidewalk. And that's why it's not an engineering standard that's required until we hit those numbers.
And that's my only hesitation. I really support the idea. I support the thought that that's the only piece of sidewalk that needs to be completed. This might be a missed opportunity if we don't, but I'm not sure what I'm asking. I don't know what the financial burden is.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Scott, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it again on like Google Earth and Google Maps, and it's like, it feels like, the building to the east has done some nice improvements. I know it's really an area of focus. And, I guess the way I look at it is, well, that's what, if we require that, because that's in the best interest of the city and the neighborhood. And if the applicant doesn't like it, it's hard. There's other locations to do an auto sales business. I hate putting something in there and missing our chance to improve the area. I kind of feel like Travis.
But what is I agree completely. I just don't know the burden I'm asking for again. So I'm wondering, is it completely irrational to ask if we table it until we have some numbers to understand? No, or
I don't think we need to table it. I think that, we have to hear from the applicant first of all. But I think it's a reasonable accommodation at this point. To complete what we've required of other property owners in the area. Why we don't require that of this one doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, and it just makes sense to me, Phil, that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, no, I was going to say, it just makes sense to me, with what Travis has said, that this is the time to act on this, because the property owner has several units for rent, and regardless whether this is a car sales or whatever type of business it is, anytime we get an applicant from this building, we should get this sidewalk completed, because it does abut the building. It does add to the look and the value of the building. It's not like we're asking them to repave Main Street, it's just adding some sidewalk to their already existing property.
Well, and I think it's in the best interest of the city personally. But Travis,
Mr. Chair,
did you have another comment?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, to your point, why don't we hear from the applicant and
yes,
and then
sure,
I'm sure
absolutely.
we can have a lot more discussion, on our side. We're kind of getting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, we've had plenty of discussion from commission members, and we will have additional discussion after the applicant presents his facts. Is the applicant present this evening?
Yeah, hold on one moment. Mr. Bierman, you're allowed to, hold on one second. There's somebody else. Okay, Mr. Bierman, you should be allowed to speak now.
Hi, are you there, sir? Hello? Mr. Bierman, can you hear us?
He sent a message saying he's not able
Yeah.
to. Ryan Bierman will take the call.
Okay. Mr. Ryan, are you on? Are you?
Looks like Ryan's not muted.
Right. Yeah, he should be allowed.
Well, Zach, what do we do in this case?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on. I just messed with some stuff and it started working. Ryan Bierman here speaking. My brother is one who actually did the application, Nick Bierman. I'm just
Mr.
taking the call
Bierman,
because he's been
could
busy.
you give your address just for the record? I apologize, but we do need that for the record. I apologize.
My home address?
Either home or the application address.
1221 North, 100 East, American Fork, Utah.
Thank you.
Yep. So do you guys just want me to begin with my comments, or how do you want me to go about this?
No, we would like you to address the application and any comments that you may have heard from the commission members.
Absolutely. So specifically to the concerns with the property, I'll address those first with the sidewalk issue, et cetera. As far as the building goes, the owners of the building actually own or occupy a good majority of the building, and it's basically just used for the unit we're going to occupy is basically just used for storage of stuff. It's been there for probably 10 plus years. So really there's not much going on in the building besides what the owner is doing. He occupies the northerly most unit, like maybe the first two, I believe. And then a couple of the offices are rented out and with tenants that have been there for, I would estimate, 10 plus years. So this facility, I'll call it Industrial Plaza, doesn't have much transit going in and out. With that being said, the owner's allowing us, he's helping us kind of kickstart, giving us a good opportunity where we can begin. As far as the improvements goes, if that's going to require, I would estimate tens of thousands of dollars in improvements to put a sidewalk in with all the excavation costs, et cetera. It would be completely unfeasible for us to occupy the property if that condition was required.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your comments. Do we have questions from commission members?
Mr. Chair, just one question for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
I guess it would be, and he may not have an answer, but the condition of a sidewalk is something that the owner of the property should put in. We take the opportunity as an applicant comes in to try to bring it to compliance and to try to do these improvements for the good of the city. But our hope would be that the landlord would look at this and recognize the value of his property and of their property. And anyway, so that's to help you understand, Mr. Bierman, that's kind of why we do it. You probably do understand that, but it's when we have an opportunity that comes before us that we really look to try to improve areas that may need it. So I guess that was one of the things. So my question for you is have you had a discussion, with the landlord about any of these conditions that are on there? Obviously not about the sidewalk, but have you had is that a discussion you could have?
Yeah, so we actually have had this discussion with the landlord, specifically about just general improvements, not necessarily specifically to the sidewalk, but as far as they go, like I said, they've just been there so long. I would guess that they sell the building in the next 10 years, and that the building is probably torn down and incorporated with Paris RV next door. That would be my best guess. The owner's in his 80s. His son doesn't necessarily want to take it over. And so that's what I would guess. As far as them wanting to dump a lot of money into improving it, they definitely don't see the value really, just because they've been there so long. Their business is so established. They don't really have like foot traffic coming in and out of there. And so I do see the value to Murray City, for example, With that being said, this sidewalk isn't necessarily like it's transited, but there's actually a ton of traffic going in and out of Paris RV that I don't really know if people dare walk down it because they're crossing the sidewalk about every 10 seconds with pulling an RV in and out. Obviously a little bit off subject, but with that being said, I just don't know if they would see the value in that. And with that being said, I don't think they would want to do anything, and it would limit our ability to actually do something with the site.
All right. Thank you, sir, for your comments. We appreciate it. Public comments that have been submitted, Zach.
I have not seen, or I will open this up for public comment for at least a bit to see if we do have some public comments. So at this time, I will open this agenda item up for public comment. Anything coming in, Zach or Susan?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to close the public comment portion of this agenda item and bring it up back up to the commission for additional discussion, or if anyone cares to add a condition to the application or a motion.
Travis,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Travis.
Yeah. So the other thing that I'd mention in all of this is that the more important frontage in this general project area is the Main Street frontage. And due to site limitations, we're already allowing them to get away from including the appropriate street lighting and street trees and landscaping in this area. And while I appreciate that, there's been little changes to this particular business in the last 10 years, this general area of the city, Fire Clay, is not anywhere what it was 5 years ago, let alone 3 years ago. This area has undergone tremendous transformation. And just saying that, well, people wouldn't dare walk down a sidewalk here because of Paris RV. That's the whole reason we include a pedestrian infrastructure, is because people do need to walk in this area. There are now, there's at least 1,000 new units in this area that people need to be able to get to State Street to access the transportation. They need that bridge between the track station and State Street. I just feel like, they've gotten away with not doing anything with this piece of property for a very long time. I lived in this area growing up. This is a neglected part of town. This is a part of town where business owners didn't necessarily go out of their way to make it a quality investment for the community. This is a time where this needs to change. In this particular area, this is a new neighborhood. This isn't necessarily going to become an extension of Paris RV. It may, but that's not what the general neighborhood is transforming into. And to just dismiss it and saying, well, we just don't think it's feasible. The property owner needs to step up. And if it's not time for the property owner to step up, if they're unwilling to do it, then maybe it's time for this area to continue to transform. So I feel really strongly that they're getting out of a lot by not being required to do any of the landscaping in this area. It's not a beautiful property. It's not. It needs work. So we either take the opportunity now, or we continue to let it sit here and continue to degrade to become a warehouse in a very, very, very residential part of our community. So I think that the time to see it a different way is now.
Well said. Thank you. Any other comments from commission members?
I just want the record to show I completely support putting a sidewalk in there. I want a sidewalk there. I just am concerned that we're not being consistent when we set up guidelines and we pick and choose when to follow them. I don't know why 5,000 is a guideline, but somebody smarter than me does. And I would like either of them to tell me the reason why I shouldn't follow it or why I should. We did follow the guidelines on the landscaping over at the next block over. Well, anyway, And then now or today we're saying we don't have to follow the guidelines, and it just makes me a little concerned that the public will look at us as if we're not very consistent. And don't get me wrong, I support a sidewalk there. I just want to be consistent in my presentation to the public.
I understand very much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that,
Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, Marin had a question.
yes, Marin.
Sorry.
No.
I do feel the same way that has been mentioned tonight. I do think that this is an area that needs sidewalk and has changed a lot in the last few years. But I do, just like the landscaping that we didn't require for, the stitching, because it was an undue burden on the property owner of an area that was like near future. I think that this $5,000 standard has been put in place for a reason, and that we really are asking a lot. I understand that a sidewalk is different than landscaping because it is the safety of people being able to publicly move around, and that this is an area that needs that. So I do totally understand that, but I think that it's exactly the same as the other one in the sense that it's a rundown, neglected building that's been in the same situation for a long time, and a small company comes into one of the sections of it, and now we're requiring such big changes by the property owner when something maybe is going to be redeveloped in the nearest future. And then that seems to me the time that we would add the sidewalk and redevelop that whole property when it turns over.
Thank you. If I could add one comment just on my part here. I think one of the standards that we need to consider when considering a conditional use is this business going to be a benefit to the community. And frankly, another used car lot in this area, I don't see that it's a tremendous benefit to the community. And they are already receiving the benefit of not, the property owner is already receiving the benefit of not being forced to adhere to the landscaping requirements strictly because of the configuration of the property adjacent to the street. And when you look at the addition of the sidewalk, that is the one beneficial condition we can add to this application that benefits the entire area. And that's why I am in favor of that. Scott, did you have a comment?
Yeah, a couple of things. No, I think there's been some good discussion, and I actually really appreciate what Lisa said about making it look arbitrary, kind of like I brought up in our pre-meeting, is I think sometimes without following what's in the code or what's been done before, sometimes it can look arbitrary. And I think it's unanimous that we all feel like that a sidewalk should go in here, but I get concerned about just kind of being arbitrary and saying, we should put it in there. Unfortunately, the landowner clearly hasn't cared much about the property. And to me, I don't understand why a landowner couldn't go and say, yeah, I'm going to rent my property out. I'm going to make some money. I can certainly put in 30 feet of sidewalk. So I don't necessarily feel like it's undue. It feels like it's unfair to have the landowner, put all the burden on the applicant. But again, that's not our place. So I'm supportive of the sidewalk, and I'm also sensitive to the landowner or to the applicant. Now, what I will say to the applicant is, if we end up putting a condition in there and it becomes unfeasible for the applicant to go into this space, there are plenty of properties in Murray that have similar uses that already have, sidewalks and landscaping. I mean, think of, some of the, we do applications all the time in other parts of the city. So if this landowner doesn't care about coming into, bringing his property where it should be, then he shouldn't be renting his property. I mean, so I guess I don't feel too bad for the landowner. I feel so I guess a long answer, but I'm supportive of the sidewalk. But I also think we need to look at these as a city of, again, maybe this shouldn't just be a broad answer of $5,000. Maybe it needs to be a little more context and have some of that. So anyway, I know kind of a long answer, I guess, a long comment, but I guess that's my 2 bits.
Thank you. Any other comments from commission members?
I'll make one comment, Mr.
Please, Ned.
Chairman.
Yes.
And I'm having some problem with my connection here. So if you lose me, I'll try to
take the tape off your camera, Ned.
Pardon me?
Take the tape off your camera.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm having a little issue with anyway, my comment is the property that Commissioner Milkevich is talking about. I agree with some of the comments. However, you can walk down that property. This is a property that the commission discussed several weeks ago and about sidewalk and curb and gutter. Well, the bottom line is, okay, you have to walk on some gravel. There is some concrete there as well. This is a different property. However, you can make it from one end of the property to the other without going in the street. The property we're talking about here tonight, you cannot walk there. You have to go into the street, in which case I would agree with Commissioner Nade that this is a little different than just curb and gutter. This is clearing a way so that you can actually move in a pedestrian area without going into the street. So
I think we just lost him.
There he goes. I think Ned made his point quite clearly.
I think Zach was censoring him.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. He's got the power. But with that, are there any additional comments from commission members? If not, I would entertain a motion pertaining to this agenda item.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Travis, go ahead.
I will make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of vehicle sales business at the property address 4335 South Main Street, subject to conditions 1 through 9, with an amendment to condition number 1 to read instead saying installation of curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the Edison Avenue property frontage are required.
Okay. Thank you. You are amending item number 1. So, all right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. I have a motion by Travis Ney and a second by Sue Wilson to approve a conditional use permit to allow operation of a vehicle sales business at the property address 4335 South. And you know what? It just cut off on my paper here. 4335 South Main Street. Subject to conditions 1 through 9, with condition 1 being amended to state that installation of sidewalk along Edison Street is required. Call for a vote, please. Oh, do I have, and I have a second, so call for a vote, okay, please.
All right. Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
I'm really not sure what to say here. I support the sidewalk. I understand why we're doing it. I'm just a little bit nervous that we're not being consistent with our standards. I think it's going to pass no matter what I say. So I guess I could go ahead and just say no.
Okay.
All right. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I write that down. Commissioner Patterson. I think that said yes, if I can read lips correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
And Commissioner Markham.
Yes. Motion passes, and with the amended conditions. So good luck to the applicant and the business owner. And we really do wish that you are able to do business in Murray City, but we do have standards that we need to uphold. So thank you. And Lisa, you should never hesitate on voting how you feel, regardless of the rest of the commission. It is your vote, and that's what's important. So please don't ever hesitate.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Markham.
All right. Our
Hey,
next
Mr. Markham,
item.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Markham, just one thing for the applicant. Again, I just want to, there are plenty of great places in Murray to do business. If the landlord's unwilling to help and doesn't care enough about the business to help you abide by the conditions, work with the city staff. There's plenty of great locations in Murray.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice Chairman Woodbury. All right. With that, we'll move to subdivision review items for the agenda this evening. Item number 5 is advanced healthcare at 666 West, 5300 South, and 5322 South Allendale Drive. Zach will present this to us this evening.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman Markham. Sorry.
That's okay, Zach. No problem.
This is agenda item number 5, which is advanced healthcare. Allendale Real Estate requesting an amendment to the advanced healthcare subdivision, lot 2 of the advanced healthcare subdivision, to create a new 2-lot commercial subdivision. The property is located at 5322 South Allendale Drive. You can see here on your screen. It is within the CN, which is our neighborhood, our commercial neighborhood zone. I don't have a lot here for you, so this is pretty much it. This is the plan. They would like to place they would like to split this lot and create a line here that divides this property. So this is 5300 South on the right-hand side of your screen. Up on the top of your screen is 600 West or Allendale Drive. And so they are proposing to just split that lot so that they could potentially develop or sell that second lot there. So with that, planning division staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the requested preliminary and final subdivision plat for the property addressed 5322 South Allendale Drive, subject to the 5 conditions as stated in the staff report and before you.
Are there questions from commission members concerning this application?
Yeah, I have one. Can we go back to the plat for a second? I noticed that there's the drainage easement right through the center of that piece of property. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a 20-foot drainage easement on the property. It's intended. It's going to stay.
Why through the center of the property, though? That seems like it's going to limit development along that area.
It looks like, so from what I can tell, it looks like it's in favor of UDOT. It's drainage for 5300, I would assume.
Sorry, if I can jump in.
Jared, please. Yes.
I remember this from before. That is exactly right. So it has to remain, but it can get incorporated into development pretty easily in underground storm tech systems and things like that.
It can be underground. That's the key. It can be underground.
It's not going to be, you won't be able to put a building over it. Because if they needed to maintain,
you will not.
There, probably not. But there could be a potential to modify it during construction. There'd be no real reason for them to try to modify it right now because they don't know what potential buildings they're going to have there. In the event that they needed to put a building there, they could probably modify it as long as they keep taking water from 53rd and moving it off. They'll be okay.
Okay, perfect. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would say it's safe to say that it's going to be modified because that severely restricts the development potential of this piece of property. So, yeah. Good catch, Travis. Thank you once again.
So Mr. Smallwood, that was my only question, is by dividing this in 2 lots, we are leaving 2 lots that are buildable by the code that they're in the zone they're in. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yes. So the building permit is in for the senior living facility. I don't know if it's been issued yet, but it is in and being reviewed. So that is going to be developed. The proposed lot 2 is really just going to remain as a vacant parcel at this point. We don't have any development plans or anything for it at this time.
Okay. Any other questions from commission members at this time? All right. If not, I would like to ask the applicant if they are present this evening.
Yes, hold on one second.
Get your
I
magic
gotta
wand
remember.
out, Zach.
I know, I'm sorry. If the applicant could raise their hand in the thing, that would be super helpful. Because I have quite a few people here and I'm not sure which ones. Maybe they're not on.
Okay.
I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand to represent this item at
What
this
about
point.
Bill Frost?
Bill Frost is the guy that does our that does the streaming.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I am not seeing an applicant raise their hand.
All right. Well, with that's okay. I would like to open this item up for public comment, seeing that the applicant is not available at this time, and see if there is any public comment that would like to be made concerning this agenda item. So we'll entertain that for a minute. We've not received anything ahead of time. Is that correct, Zach?
The only things I have received are I've received 2 phone calls. I think I mentioned it. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I did receive 2 phone calls. I apologize. My brain is all fuzzy. I'm sick. So I apologize. But I did receive 2 phone calls just asking, what's going to happen here. And a lot of it, I just told them I don't know. This is pretty much just a lot split. That they don't have any development proposals, and that the Stellar Senior Living Center is still moving forward. That's all I've received.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll give a little bit of time here to see if we have any comments emailed in. Thank you. Zach or Susan, have we had any movement at all?
None.
Okay. Zach?
No, sorry.
All right. With that, I will close the public comment portion of this agenda item and bring it back up to the commission for further discussion or a motion if you so desire.
Mr. Chair.
I'd like to make a motion.
You got it, Ned.
Yes, Ned.
I'd like to make a motion, if you can continue to hear me, that the planning commission approve the requested preliminary and final advance 5322 South, Allendale Drive, subject to the 5 conditions listed.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Scott, thank you. I have a motion by Ned Hacker and a second by Scott Woodbury that the Planning Commission approve the requested preliminary and final advanced healthcare amended subdivision plat for the property address 5322 South Allendale Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 5 as presented in the application. Please call for a vote.
Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich.
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker. I lost him. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I heard that.
And Commissioner Markham.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes unanimously. Good luck with any plans moving forward. I'm glad that the lot split will work out for you. So with that, we will move to our next agenda item. Spring Creek Cove Investments, LC. It is 5091 South Wesley Road and 5050 South 1100 East. It is a final subdivision review. And Jared Hall will present this to us this evening.
Thank you. Zach, do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes, you should.
Okay. Okay, are you all seeing item 6, Spring Creek Cove?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Okay. And the good version of it, not the one with the little mini pictures on the side, right? You're seeing the actual presentation.
That's the big old billboard.
Good, that's the one I want. Okay, thanks. So this is, as you said, the final subdivision request for Spring Creek Cove. The Planning Commission approved with some conditions the preliminary of this project back in, let's see, March or April of this year. It is a 15-lot planned unit development, 15 single-family home lots. They're using planned unit development on this project, just to rehash a little bit really quickly for you and the record, in order to keep out of this area that you can see on the east edge of the property that is Spring Creek. It is a wetland. One of the conditions that the Planning Commission imposed during preliminary was the delineation of this wetland and the protection of it. They are staying out of it with the lots. They've got the approvals from Salt Lake County and from the Corps of Engineers and everyone to move forward, and from the state of Utah to do the stream alteration. That's not easy to get because they were required also to dredge this and clean it so that it can handle the 10-year flood flows that come through. It takes a lot of water from other areas as well. So it provides open space and conservation of wetlands, but it also is handled. As you can see, it's in the R18 zone. So the lots that were proposed here in the final subdivision meet the standards of the R18 zone generally, but there are a couple of modifications. Principally, if you remember, those modifications involve front yards that are a little bit shorter so we can keep well out of that conservation area. Now, in those shorter front yards, none of the garages are any less or any closer to the public right of way than 20 feet so that you can park a car. And we don't have to worry about parking problems on this series of roads. It's 2 cul-de-sacs. The 15 lots are all served from those 2 cul-de-sacs. There's some open space along the frontage road, or along the front of the road coming in, that'll be maintained by the HOA, and also that delineated wetland. There's the one, if you remember, there's a small pathway down through these 2 lots to get to where you can see. It's just a gravel, simple path, so you have to mean it and want to go down and see it, but you can get down to the wetlands and still enjoy that area without any impact. There's no other improvements down there other than having cleared and dredged the channel so it can handle the water. But that'll just be pristine, conserved area. So staff's been very supportive of it all along as a project because it's a classic example of conservation subdivision. Garbett Homes is proposing this, and they do a lot of environmental work, and this is a good project for them as well. They've provided, as requested in the preliminary application, the grading and the other permits, as we mentioned, state permits and others for the Corps of Engineers, et cetera, that were required, as well as the elevations of the homes and the materials and colors that were in your packets. We've just included here a couple of the pictures of the kinds of homes that are going in there. These are the styles that they'll be using. Garbett will be building all of the homes. These aren't lots that are subbed out to different contractors to build. Garbett will build all of them. And we are recommending that the final subdivision be approved with the following conditions. You'll see a lot of them are actually already dealt with, but we usually keep those in place just to make sure that going forward to final and recordation, they're taken care of. Specifically, item J, the irrigation company approval, is still in the works. We won't record the project until that's finished. But that's our recommendation as staff, if you have any questions for me at this point.
Questions from commission members? I would just like to say that I was very pleased to see this come back for final subdivision approval. This piece of property has been addressed many times over the many years that I've been on the Planning Commission, and this really looks like a quality development. It was very interesting and enjoyable to see all of the permits that they have gone to the trouble of getting through the Corps of Engineers and everyone else involved. And I appreciate Garbett's effort in trying to develop this. I have no idea what the cost of these individual houses are going to be, but the overall development to me appears to be one of high quality, and I appreciate their effort.
Thank you. We've been very pleased, as well as staff. Jacob at Garbett is not a quitter. a lot of people over the years have given up on developing this property, but we always felt engineering and planning, as soon as Garbett was involved in looking at it, we thought, well, if there's a developer that will stick it out on this and really make it work, it's probably Garbett. And so far we've been right. So we're looking forward to recording it.
Very good. Well, if there are no additional comments, I would like to ask if the applicant is present this evening. If Zach will allow them to speak.
Hello, Commission.
Yes, Jacob.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Jacob Ballstead, 273 North East Capitol Street, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84013.
And Mr. Ballstead, are you willing and able to abide by the five conditions that are attached to this application?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any additional information that you would like the commission to hear at this time?
I don't think so. It's been a long haul, but we're excited to get to where we are and anxious to start building this project. We appreciate the help of planning staff, planning and engineering, and of course the Planning Commission. So thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you. This was a blighted area prior to this, with homes that were drug homes and so forth. And so it's really nice to see this potentially become an asset to the city and the surrounding community. So with that, I would like to open up this agenda item for public comment. Any comment prior to the meeting?
No, we have not.
Okay. We'll give a brief bit of time to see if there are additional comments submitted.
You got a good groove going there. I don't know what it is, but
Yep, just enjoying the hold music by myself, I guess. So
hey, it's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. I can share with everybody.
All right. Any comments coming in, staff?
No.
No.
All right. Well, with that, I will close the public comment portion of this agenda item and bring it back up to the commission for further discussion or a motion if you see fit.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I think this is a great project, and as you suggested, the area has been blighted for a long time. Spent a long time with Garbett getting to where we are today, and I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission grant final approval for the proposed Spring Creek Cove Plan Unit Development Subdivision, subject to conditions 1 through 5.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Lisa. I have a motion by Ned Hacker, a second by Lisa Mokiewicz, to have the Planning Commission grant final approval for the proposed Spring Creek Cove PUD subdivision, subject to conditions 1 through 5 as presented in the application this evening. Please call for a vote.
Thank you. Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Ms. Mokiewicz?
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury?
Yes.
Mr. Ney?
yes.
Ms. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
And Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes. Good luck, and we'll be watching for this. This is a great addition to the city. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Planning Commission.
All right. Our next agenda item is Clovercrest Subdivision Amendment at 728 West Morning Dew Drive and 5059 South Morning Dew Circle. It is a lot line adjustment for lots number 60 and 61. And Jared will be presenting this to us.
Thank you. So this is, as you said, a lot line adjustment. It is fairly simple. I'm just going to run through it and make sure we all understand exactly what's happening, and then I'll be as brief as possible. So you have the two properties. basically lot 61 right here and lot 60 right here of the same subdivision. They have different addresses because this is the corner lot there. What's going to happen, this is in the R18 zone. The proposal is for this portion, if I'm going to show you real quickly, this portion right now, the line goes right like that. The proposal is to swing that line just like that, create a 608 square foot triangular area that will be added to the rear lot of lot 60 and from the side lot of lot 61. The right setbacks are still maintained. The lot areas are more than required. So there's no reason that we see that zoning couldn't approve this. So we've recommended for it. Engineering will take a look at it and approve the deeds. Again, as a lot line adjustment, they'll take this forward according to the requirements for lot line adjustment and file deeds in order to accomplish this. But it has to get amendment approval from the Planning Commission because it isn't an established subdivision. So we're recommending approval with just these two simple conditions to meet the requirements for lot line adjustment and maintain conformance with the R18 zone.
All right. Any questions, concerns from the Planning Commission?
No.
All right. Well, with that, I would ask if the applicant is present this evening or applicants.
If I could have the two applicants just raise their hands. I think I know who they are, but I want to make sure before I unmute them. Okay.
Brian Fowler has indicated yes.
Yes. So I will.
And they're together, it looks like, Zach.
Great. I think you're able to speak now, Mr. Fowler.
All right, great. Would the applicants please just give us their name and address for the record, please?
My name is Brian Fowler. The address is 728 West Morning Dew Drive, Murray, Utah 84123.
And Jeff Shivers, 5059 Morning Dew Circle, Murray, Utah 84123.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have you gentlemen had a chance to review the application? And there are two conditions attached to this. Are you able to comply with those two conditions?
Yes, I don't see any issue with that at all. This is Jeff Shivers.
And yes, Brian Fowler, no issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to add in addition to the presentation by staff this evening?
No, I think this is just aesthetically something that made a lot of sense for both of us in the sense that, Brian's backyard is just very, very tiny. And this is a corner of my yard that is just fallow. It's not near the living area of my home. And, it's just something that made sense for his betterment and it doesn't really impact the aesthetic nature of my yard at all either. So it's just, I think it's a win-win for both of us.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you. Are there any questions from Planning Commission members to the applicants concerning this application? Okay. Seeing none, I will open this up for public comment just in case there are individuals that have an opinion concerning this. So we'll take a minute. Staff, we did not receive anything prior to the meeting this evening.
No. We had one question about ownership of a property next to the project, but not about the project itself.
Okay, great. We'll take just a moment to see if there are individuals that would like to comment. Thank you. Anything coming in, staff?
No.
All right. With that, I'll close the public comment portion of this item and bring it back up to the commission for any additional comments or a motion if you see fit.
Mr. Chair, could I make a motion?
Absolutely, Lisa.
I'd like to Make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the request to amend lots 60 and 61 of the Clovercrest subdivision, adjusting the lot line between the properties addressed 728 West Morning Dew Drive and 5059 South Morning Dew Circle, subject to conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. I have a motion by Lisa Mokevich, a second by Sue Wilson, that the Planning Commission approve the request to amend lots 60 and 61 of the Clovercrest subdivision, adjusting the lot line between the properties addressed 728 West Morning Dew Drive and 5059 South Morning Dew Circle, subject to conditions 1 and 2 as submitted in the application. Please call for a vote.
Thank you. Ms. Smilkevich,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Ney,
Yes.
and Mr. Markham.
Yes,
Thank
motion passes unanimously. Thanks for coming to us and making this official, and good luck. It's nice to see neighbors work together, and we appreciate it. Good luck, folks.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will move on to our general plan and zone map amendment portion of the agenda. We have 2 items on this evening. The first is the Boyer Company is the applicant for property at 861 East Winchester Street and 6520, 6550, 6580 South, and 900 East. It's a general plan amendment from commercial to mixed use. And we'll also have, the presentation will also encompass agenda item number 9, which is a zone map amendment from CD zoning to MU mixed use. And Susan is going to present this one to us this evening.
I'm actually presenting.
Oh, all right, Jared. Thank you. No, that's okay.
So,
not funny, not funny. Susan just she just had a moment there.
I just had heart failure.
You know, it worked better when you said it than me. Actually, you have more authority that way, so it's good. I'm very pleased, actually. So, as you said, this is item 8 and 9. So it's the general plan amendment and the zone map amendment, and I want to talk about the differences between the two. It does involve several properties on Winchester Street and 900 East. As you can see from the map, there are several properties included. You have 900 East right here, Winchester Street, and this is the site of the RC Willey that's been there for a number of years. We talk about two different amendments, the one for the general plan, the future land use map of the general plan, and the other for the zone change. And this is a snippet of the zoning map. So as you can see from the legend here, this property is all in the CD zone. It does have residential around it, some office uses, and there's R&B zoning further to the west, commercial zoning across the street. But this is the zone map. So CD zoning, commercial development zone. This snippet is from the future land use map of the general plan. And the request is dual because this portion, this property, is all in the general commercial category of the general plan of the future land use map. The future land use designations are supposed to guide the things that we do with zone changes or the application of different zonings and among other things, but that's one of the principal uses for them. So their amendment that they've requested is to amend this map, the future land use map, from general commercial to mixed use. And if I go back a slide, from the CD zone to the mixed use zone. Bearing that in mind, what we look at in terms of the analysis is the difference in the two kinds of zones. And we talked about this in the work session a little bit, and I want to do that now so we can talk about the kinds of uses, because this is obviously the large warehouse, furniture warehouse here in the parking lot in the CD zone. RC Willey, it's become widely known over the last couple of months, is closing their doors at this facility. But I want to be clear that that's happening regardless of, this isn't RC Willey being pushed out. RC Willey is closing, and the landowners were casting around for other potential users for the site. And the Boyer Company has approached us with this request to change the zoning to mixed use. The assumption would be then that this building would be removed and the land would be redeveloped with a different project, a mixed use project. There are certain differences, significant differences between commercial zoning like is in place now and mixed use zoning. One of the easiest ways to talk about that is just the uses. And so I was going to read what was provided at the Planning Commission in terms of the differences in the allowed uses. I'll just read this directly from the report if that's all right. CD zoning, permitted and conditional uses allowed in the existing commercial development. CD zone include hotels, retail stores, restaurants, grocery stores, funeral homes, assisted living facilities, beauty salons, personal services, which are things like tattoo, beauty parlors, there's nail salons, things like that. Business services, professional services, offices for architects, engineers, etc. Entertainment and sports, contractors, vehicle sales, rental and repairs, convenience stores and gas stations and athletic clubs. There are no residential uses allowed in the CD zone, multifamily or single family. In the proposed mixed-use zone, the permitted and conditional uses allowed include hotels, transportation services, department stores, restaurants, grocery stores, funeral homes, assisted living facilities, beauty salons and personal services, business services, professional services, entertainment and sports, contractors in limited fashions, manufacturing and wholesale trade, both with other restrictions. And you should notice some similarities there. There are a lot of similarities between the commercial uses that are allowed. But it also allows multifamily residential uses such as townhomes and apartments and condominiums with a conditional use permit and planning commission review. Those kinds of uses are only allowed in a mixed use project. So what that means is that, and significantly also auto-oriented businesses are not allowed. So car sales lots, for example, are not allowed. Car repairs not allowed in the mixed use zone. So what that means then is that a mixed use zoning applied to these properties could result in a mix of commercial uses, likely out on 900 East and Winchester Street, and multifamily residential uses, probably more to the rear. We don't know. We don't have a project. We don't have a concept. We don't have an application. It would be improper to take one at this time without the zoning in place. But any multifamily that was proposed here would have to commercial uses as well, prescribed by the ordinance. So that's the most significant difference between the two zones. There are other differences in that the mixed use zone has more ordinance regarding how you construct buildings, how you integrate the site, because they are mixed use properties, than the CD zone has. And they have similar requirements for things like height. For example, in the CD zone.
Hey, Jared.
Yes.
I don't think the public is able to see the map.
Oh, really?
I think we're seeing you and not the map. And
I have the map up on my screen, but I'm not sure.
It is, but I don't think the live stream.
Really?
So I just got a message also that the public can't see the shared screen.
Really? Okay.
Interesting.
That should be.
Well, but then there's plenty of people that just said that they can see the screen, like Jacob Ballstead, and I can see the map. So
settings.
I'm not sure why that would be.
Just carry on.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Sounds like it's just people have different settings.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if you see anything different. I'm sharing the screen with the map, so it should be what.
I mean, let's be honest with Jared. It's not really bad just watching you.
Oh, well, thank you, Scott. But, so mixed use zones do have some different requirements for parking, et cetera, and that's all been outlined in your reports. Most of the concerns that come from folks around potential mixed use developments have to do with height and the differences in use, traffic, et cetera. Again, all those kinds of things we can't address in specific tonight because we don't have a project in front of us. But any project, what I would say as a staff person to you about mixed use versus CD zoning is we have a lot of ability in a project review, as you all experienced too, to look at the kinds of impacts that a development has on surrounding properties and try to mitigate those impacts through the codes that we have and the things that we can do. mixed use zoning is being applied all over the valley in lots of different areas. And this is a large retail store that is closing. And the building is such that we don't believe as a staff that it's going to be picked up by someone and turned into something else and used commercially. So we have recommended approval. And I'm just going to go to that screen at this point. Staff is recommending approval of both the general plan's future land use map amendment and the zone map amendment to allow a mixed use development to occur here, because we feel like the best opportunity we have as a city to preserve the commercial activity that has been at this corner for years is to make this a mixed use site, to bring multifamily housing into it as well. That's where commercial is headed in the future. That's where it's headed now. So we feel like our opportunity to preserve the site, not have it sit vacant and become problematic like the Kmart did, for example, is to go to mixed use and see a new development come in. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Well, is it fair to say, and 1 second, Travis, just to dial it down, we would have a lot more control over the final development that occurs here if it went to a mixed use zone instead of remaining as the CD zone that it is currently?
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. I mean, the questions are different because the type of development is different. But because the developments are mixed use developments, we have a lot more code that deals with how those developments integrate with each other, and we can be sensitive to, and we try to be, I think, in the only real example that I have of it with Van Winkle Crossing, we tried to be very sensitive to the residential areas, and we would certainly do that here as well. We do have more code to deal with, to work with mixed use than we do in CD zoning. So if this was a hotel site, for example, we don't have quite the same finesse to apply to a new development that comes in here, although we can still try to mitigate impacts with conditional uses that are larger buildings, et cetera.
Right. And you know, RC Willie is a bit of an anomaly, to be very honest with you. It's a very low building. They're not open on Sunday. Yeah. They've been a wonderful neighborhood partner. Nothing like that is assured if this zoning stays the same. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. This is, you're absolutely right. This is the ideal neighbor. We have several email comments to read into the record tonight, and one of those comments makes that point, and I think it's fair to say it's been an ideal neighbor.
Okay, Travis had a comment. Please, yeah. Travis.
Actually, just a question, or maybe Jared, can you just why this wasn't included in the most recent general plan as a mixed use versus the commercial development?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Commissioner. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to go back to the future land use map, actually.
Jared,
Mr. Hope.
Jared, sorry, everyone, can I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Bill?
Yes.
If Bill can show the shared screen on the live feed versus the speaker, that's what those that are watching can't see the shared screen, and that's the issue. So those on the Zoom call are seeing the shared screen, but the live feed on Murray City Live is not showing the shared screen. So,
and I just hit my shared screen, and box came up that says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
So that's what's funny is that I'm sharing this screen.
It's not anything to do with the Zoom call. It's Bill.
Okay.
So I don't know if Bill can hear me. I've messaged him, but Bill needs to be showing the cut to the shared screen versus the speaker.
Yeah, see, this is what you can see. If you can see, I'm holding my phone up to the camera.
Yeah.
That's what the people on the live stream can see.
Yeah, and that's not usually the case. So,
Mr. Hall,
okay.
Before you answer the question that Mr. Nay's question, could you include in that why the future plan didn't include R&B in the zoning?
Sure.
As well?
Sure. That's easy enough to do. Melinda, do you want us to wait until Bill has fixed that, or do you want to move on?
So move on. I just messaged you guys. If we have a cell phone for Bill, let's try and get a hold of him.
Okay. All right, so let me see if I can speak to Travis's and Lisa's question together. First, I'll take Lisa's first, actually, because it's probably the simpler of the two. You can see this area here along 9th East and down Winchester Street is residential neighborhood business. The general plan category for it is residential business, but the zone that is applied is RNB, residential neighborhood business. It's a very specifically tailored buffering zone. This corner was not included, and not just the R.C. Willey properties, but the others around it weren't included because, as you can see, they were more commercially developed. The RNB was applied where there were homes that were likely to begin to run down over time and start to turn into commercial that was not improved really, but used as commercial or just run down. So RNB was applied where there wasn't already commercial to be enhanced. So it was left in commercial zoning for that reason. To Travis's question, go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, as well as the depth of the property, right?
Right. This is a big, large, and R.C. Willey was already here when the building was already here and in use when the idea of RNB zoning was conceived. And it's a good idea, and I think we've had great results from it. It didn't make a lot of sense here because it was already in commercial use and it goes so deep into the neighborhoods. And as you can see, it really just has been applied where we have kind of a shallow depth to really just buffer where the existing neighborhoods have already come right out to these high traffic corridors. So it doesn't make as much sense on this corner. And I think that's still valid today. It doesn't make as much sense on this corner because of the depth. Now to Travis's question, the general plan, we didn't apply mixed use outside of the areas in 2017 when the general plan was adopted. We didn't apply mixed use to areas outside of the core of the city and where it had already been applied as a zone. So around the transit stations, you saw the TOD zone, which was one of our mixed use zone. In the city center where we're trying to redevelop the downtown, you have a mixed use zone. And then we had a large area of mixed use that was already in existence, and we added to that around the central station transit area as well. And probably in the future, we'll see that there's mixed use applied in the general plan at Fashion Place West as well, on the third station on the south. We didn't apply it anywhere else. However, the general plan does have statements in the general commercial category about the inclusion of higher density housing, multifamily housing in the future. Because even in 2017, when we talked about it with our consultants and as a city, we recognized that the trend in retail and the reorganization, if you want to call it that, of commercial in the country is to include higher density housing right there in the projects. So that statement was made in the general commercial zone or in the general commercial category, even though it's not truly a mixed use category. So there's support for this kind of change written right into that category, the recognition at least that this kind of thing is. So in all of in the master transportation plan and in the master sewer plan upgrade update that's being done right now, we've looked at all these kinds of sites where there are previously developed big box and strip commercial. That was the development of the last 40 years, strip commercial, mini malls and big boxes, mid boxes. Wherever those are around, they're going to start to languish. They've been adaptively reused in a few different ways, but not very effectively. And the retail market is moving on from them. So wherever we identify those on high traffic corridors in the city, we've started to plan for people to ask for these kinds of rezonings. And it makes sense from a planning and zoning perspective to do that. So we have recommended it. And that's why it's not mixed use already in the future land use map. We weren't ready to move outside of the core of the city at that point in 2017. We did caution the city officials at the time, though, that within 5 years or so, we would start to see those requests. We're at 3 years. So we're earlier than we thought, but here we are. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments from commission members right now? Jared, I just have a general question. So since there isn't a project involved with this right now, city staff has been involved as far as you say, master planning for water and sewer, because there are significant differences in a mixed use development with, additional residential units as opposed to commercial development.
Right. That's right. So I'm actually on both of those steering committees as they're working on that, and these areas come up because, like you say, Phil, this is this area in mixed use, for example. If it were rezoned mixed use, it allows that multifamily, and that significantly changes the way that sewer has to be provided here, and it changes the transportation needs and patterns a bit. We want to look at the ability to use transit. There are good bus routes on 9th East and Winchester. We don't have the kind of access to transit that we have around Murray Central Station, for example, or in the Fireclay district. So in the mixed use rewrite back last year, we graded the densities down the further they get from those stations. So the density allowed in a mixed use zone here would only be about 40 units to the acre, as opposed to the 80 to 100 units per acre that we would allow at a central station area. So that does, though, change the nature of the needs of sewer, specifically sewer, more than anything else.
Right.
Mr. Hall, and simultaneously it would change the needs or the use of the school system as well. We're putting a lot of these mixed use communities into Murray with our growth, and has the school system prepared for that?
Yes, actually, Melinda updated the school system, the school board, a few months ago or a couple months ago. Melinda, I'll forget, but these have been on our radar as areas that we expect to see a lot of pressure for mixed use developments. They don't add a ton of use to the junior high and high school categories. They do add some. They're not as significant an impact as you generally see because they usually wind up being 2-bedroom projects. In the further flung areas, the irony is right around the transit stations, we don't see more than studios and 1-bedrooms and the occasional 2s. Further out, we're probably going to see more of the 2 and 3 bedrooms. So they'll have more of an impact on the school systems than the central city projects. So when we get a project proposal for it, we'll certainly alert the school district. They, of course, get a notice that we're looking at zone changes as an affected entity. They're one of the notices that get sent out. But we'll make them aware of any project right off when we get it. So.
Also, Jared, what type of commercial would be incorporated into a development in the multi-use zone?
That's a great question. And then Travis, I saw your hand go up, so we'll come back to you. I feel like I'm running a school.
Sorry, Travis, I cut you off.
Okay, it's no problem. So retail in mixed use developments, it's likely that this kind of and I'm going to be conjecturing a little bit because we don't have a project.
Right.
9th East and Winchester are good, strongly used vehicular corridors. So the mixed uses that you probably would see come into this kind of a project would probably be horizontal mixed uses. You'd likely see commercial uses, retail uses out on 9th East and on Winchester Street, commercial and office. Boyer Company is the rezone requester, and they are a commercial and office builder. So I think office uses are likely, and retail that can utilize or benefit from that high vehicular traffic. You're going to see that more than you do in some of the other mixed use locations where they serve more the units that they're putting in, because the rooftops here to support businesses on their own where you would if it was 100 units to the acre. So you may not see exactly the same kinds of retail, but similar. You might see salons, you might see restaurants because there's good traffic here. But those restaurants are going to want to have, the trick for us as a planning commission looking at projects is restaurants and places like that come into a horizontal mixed use project in a high vehicle traffic area like this. They want that vehicle traffic as well as the units that are on the site. So we have to make sure that they're all that they're integrated in really meaningful ways, but that they're still being able to take advantage of the vehicles going by. It's not easy, but I think that's what you'd see, kind of a mix: restaurants, banks, offices, small use retail.
Okay, Jared or Travis, I'm sorry, please.
No, so really at the end of the day, it's independent of this application. It's fair to say that this type of large commercial development as it exists today, we will see more of these type of projects coming forward.
Yes, very fair to say.
We should anticipate these on State Street. We should anticipate these in other locations along the 900 East corridor, yes. Places where we have existing, aging, large, big box buildings.
Everywhere that has been developed, and places like Murray and Midvale and Sandy and South Salt Lake are all primed for this. Even out in the further valley, they're seeing some of this happen. But big boxes and suburban commercial development is shifting. Yes, and as a staff, we've anticipated it along 9th East, along State Street. Yeah, those are exactly the places where we'll see it.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's happening faster than we thought it would, but here it is.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commission members at this time?
I have one, Mr.
Please, Ned.
Chairman. So, Jared, so what's there today? We know what's there today, and as you suggested, RC Willey has been a great neighbor. They've got a low one-story building. Some of the differences between CD, commercial development, and multi-use is you can have a little bit higher skyline in the multi-use. However, you also get maybe a little better mix of uses for mixed use. And I guess I'm looking at the residential pieces to the north and a couple to the west. And I'm wondering, is mixed use perhaps, I mean, we don't know what's going there, but can you make a general comment? Is mixed use going to be better for the local residents than commercial, generally speaking?
I think it's hard to make that general comment. But in some ways, I mean, it depends on your point of view. This kind of change, it's a significant change, especially when you're dealing with an area like this where they've had this low profile building, a parking lot that was probably built for a Black Friday it's maybe never seen. And I, you know, that's not going to get recreated by any commercial redevelopment either. No one's going to use that much parking again in any commercial redevelopment of the site if it remained commercial. It's also, I think it's fair to say, with the specificity of this building having been built for RC Willey, it's also not going to happen quickly. It'll stay a long time in the commercial market that we're in if it's left in commercial zoning. It's just difficult to say. To say better, there's going to be disagreement about that. I live in a townhouse that's in a mixed area like this. I am currently serving as a multi-family buffer against a neighborhood that's more like this, and a higher traffic street, and not an auto zone. It's a Walgreens and that kind of thing. Kind of the similar uses you might see here. And I personally like it a lot. It works very, very well. But that's my experience, and I think everyone's is individual. To say that it's better, it's going to be different. I think it's going to be more thoughtful. A development that's mixed use is going to be more thoughtful than somebody that comes and tries to use this land commercially. It was very much a specific site that was useful for RC Willey for a number of years. I don't know who takes it other than RC Willey, so I don't know what to expect commercially from it. If it were to remain CD zoning. I don't know if that answers your question. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess my question kind of, I'm not going to be able to express it very well, but if it stays CD zone, and I realize that big box and big, all changing, and so that it would stay empty if it stayed as RC Willey, but the property owners could redevelop it right into something else if it stayed in CD zone. They could put a hotel in, or some of the other allowed uses if that building doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Even if the building doesn't work, it could be removed and a new sort of mini mall. I don't know what someone would build, but someone could build something else. And there are uses like hotels, etc. The difference, I think, is that when we read through the list, I pointed out the similarities in the kinds of uses. The difference is that as you look at this property, if you get to the interior of the property and you're the nail salon that's in building 4 right here, you don't have that street visibility that you need to survive, and you don't have rooftops that need you either. And your connection to the neighborhood around you is nothing. So it's not really large enough to develop like a large commercial site would be, a large commercial multi-use retail kind of site, a shopping center of some kind. It's not really quite that large. But as a smaller mixed use village area, it works in the current development climate. I think that's the difference. You'll probably likely see the same kinds of users, but they won't. The fear is that they won't come, even if it's redeveloped as a sort of a very minor shopping center, without those rooftops. At least some of them. But it could be done, yeah.
Thank you, Jared. Any more comments from commission members at this time? All right. Well, with that, I would like to ask if the applicant is present, and if they are, would they state their name and address for the record, please?
Actually, could I get them to raise their hand? And then, oh, here we go.
Captain Zach at the controls.
Can you hear me?
There we are.
Yes, Scott Verheeren, Boyer Company, 101 South, 200 East, Suite 200, Salt Lake City, 84111, and Spencer Moffett. Spencer, you on as well?
I am, yes.
Same address. So the two of us are here representing the Boyer Company. Just quickly, we'd be happy to answer any questions, but I would state that everything that Jared has said is accurate as it relates to the desire on our part to do a mixed-use zone. We see that as a way forward as we're observing, and we have built a lot of retail over the years, and we're seeing a modification of big box retail. And we see this particular piece of property as an ideal spot to do that. We've had some experience doing some things similar to this in places like Park City and Sandy and Salt Lake proper. And we do see the evolution of properties such as this, including some that we have, towards this mixed-use zoning, which does allow us to address some changes in the retail and commercial markets specifically, and also incorporating some residential with it. So that's just a quick statement. Spencer, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, and then we'd be happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
Okay, well, I would encourage commission members to ask any questions that they may have at this time prior to us going to public comment. I think the public comment portion is going to be a little bit lengthy because of prior communication that we've received that we will read into the record. So if anyone has any questions, this is a great time to ask them. But I will say that staff has provided us with a very thorough explanation of the process tonight. And the one thing that I would like to add is that the Planning Commission, our role this evening is to provide a recommendation to the City Council. We are not the authority tasked with determining the zoning or the future land use of this particular piece of property. We will be forwarding a recommendation to the council, and the final decision is with the City Council. So there will be additional opportunities for public comment and discussion for this item.
Chair Markham, we do finally have the shared screen showing on the live feed now through Facebook and Murray City Live. So from here on, the public should be able to follow along more closely and easily.
Excellent. Thank you, Melinda. Thanks, staff. Okay. Any questions from commission members?
Chairman Mark, I have a question.
Yes, please, Ned.
So, Mr. Verheeren, this is more of an interest question, but have you, the RC Lilly property it's significant. Have you contacted the other property owners that border this property as far as trying to get them under contract as well? And I just asked that for general interest, I guess, because of the particular shape of this property and how it works. It really doesn't have anything to do with our making a decision on this particular item.
We've made some general inquiries of a couple of the properties. Neither had an interest at this point in doing anything other than what they currently have, the businesses that they're operating.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commission members at this time? Okay, well, seeing none, I would like to open this up for public comment at this time. And we have, I'm told we've received a considerable amount of email comment prior to the meeting. We will have staff read each of these emails into the minutes. And during that time, while the public comment period is open, I would encourage anyone that would like to provide additional comment to email those at that time. And also, if you have emailed a comment in, we would ask that, what we would say is you have one opportunity to express your opinion. You cannot have an email and an additional comment on top of that, just in the essence of time. And so with that, I will open the public comment portion and ask staff to begin reading the emails that we have received.
Susan, before you begin, I would just ask that if the people that are attending the meeting, if you would like to speak to this item and have not sent in an email request, please raise your hand. And then after we have read those in, then I will allow you to speak to each item.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, the first public comment we received is from Ken and Tracy Maxfield. This was received on December 1st at 12:20 p.m. My name is Ken Maxfield. My wife Tracy and I own the commercial property located at 6464 South, 900 East at the northeast corner of the property that is seeking a change of zoning from Zone CD to Zone MU. Our property includes a building that is rented to the framing establishment and a shop building to the west of the framing establishment. I have concerns about changing the zoning on the surrounding property to the south and west of my property to mixed use and hope that this request will be denied. Here are our concerns. Number one, there will be islands of Zone CD left that will be surrounded by Zone MU. While those businesses located in the Zone CD will be allowed to continue with their current use, you could have the potential of high-density housing going right next to businesses with the Zone CD. And then in parentheses, remember that buildings can be up to 50 feet high, close parentheses. Once residents move in, they can start to object to being so close to a business in the Zone CD. Residents could complain about noise, visual appearance, traffic, and other items. In my experience, it is a bad idea to mix housing and commercial zones. For example, the MU zone prohibits the outdoor parking of large commercial vehicles and other equipment, but right next door is a business that can do that. With a future business permit for a business on my property be denied because while the business is allowed in a Zone CD, it will be objectionable to residents that now live adjacent to my property because the zoning was changed. If so, then this zoning will cause damages to us as property owners. Number two, in other high-density housing in Murray, there is not enough parking and residents seek off-site parking near their homes. This will happen here as residents and visitors seek street parking or spill into the surrounding businesses and neighbors to the north to find parking. Number three, this area of Murray has lower crime rates than other areas in Murray. There could be many reasons for this, but I suspect the biggest factor is that this area does not have high-density housing areas. The areas in Murray with higher crime rates have more high-density housing. By granting this zone change, you could be subjecting this area of Murray to a higher crime rate. And the next public comment was received from Sherm and Marion Ross. They reside at 875 Silver Shadow Drive. This was received on December 1st. And their comments say, we are definitely opposed to more apartments on this property. We are already dealing with increased crime. This crime comes from the extended stay hotel, Crystalline, and James Point Apartments. The transient nature of all these places has increased the crime. A nice condominium would be preferable because the residents are more permanent and are more invested in the area. More apartments or another hotel or motel will diminish our property values. Sincerely, Sherman, Marion Ross. The next public comment was received from George Hamer Jr., residing at 824 East Silver Shadow Drive. This was received December 3rd, 10:30 a.m. My family moved into our home in 1979 and is one of the homes that shares a back fence with R.C. Willey parking lot. I can tell you that there is no better neighbor than a parking lot, plus the view of the mountains is incredible. I have seen a lot of changes over the years, and I have also seen many of those changes come about. Some took place with great anticipation and excitement from the residences, but others through deceit, dishonesty, and lack of integrity. I have especially watched as different developments have taken place along Winchester Street and the underhanded ways the developers worked with Murray City Planning Division and the City Council to make some of those developments take place. Just recently, we received a notice saying that there was a request to rezone the R.C. Willey property, and if we had any questions or comments concerning the proposal, to contact Jared Hall or Murray City Planning Division. We have made several attempts to do so with no luck. With this being done during the holiday times, neither he nor his office were very available, and when someone did answer in the Planning Division, we were told he was either not in or in a meeting. When we tried to get information from the person who answered, we were told to call back later because they could not answer our questions. I find it interesting that this proposal is being pushed through during a time when people are already stressed with the holidays and to add to the stress during a pandemic as well. This is obviously an attempt to do it while people are busy with other concerns in hopes of getting it pushed through with no pushback. And if someone does try to address the issue and get answers, we are ignored. I also find it interesting there has been no mention of R.C. Willey closing their doors and selling of the property. I only found this out after getting the notice of rezoning and then contacting someone I know who works for R.C. Willey and inquired with them. This again makes me wonder why the secrecy. What are the plans for this property, and why have the developers decided to choose this time of year when everyone's minds are focused on the holidays? And how are they going to deal with them during the pandemic? I would like to know more information concerning the plans for this property and why those plans require the property to be rezoned from general commercial to mixed use, and what that even means. Since I could not get any information from the Planning Division, I tried to look it up myself. The best guess I could come up with is the developers trying to put in multifamily housing. This is not acceptable. This is a single family community and it should stay that way. I would hope that my council member, Brett Hales, who lives in the same area, would agree. This is a place for this kind of development. There is a place for this kind of development, and in the backyards of single family homes is not it. We like our community the way it is, and I would be willing to bet that not a single one of the council members would like this type of development to go in their backyards either. Obviously, there is a plan in place for the property, and neither the developer nor Murray City Division is willing to share what that is. I would hope that the City Council can see through this deception and not approve this change. Instead of trying to, why not open and honest and use a little integrity when trying to make changes like this? I have seen lots of great changes and developments with Murray City over these many years, and I am not one to disagree with change. However, it would be nice to understand what changes are occurring, especially in my backyard, and the reasons behind the changes before they take place. I would hope those whom I have elected to represent my views and opinions do just that and not approve the zoning change. Please don't put the interest of the developers first. Listen to the residences and do what you were elected to do. Represent them. Vote no. Thank you, George Hamer. The next public comment was received from Burl Greenhall. This was received today at 11:36 a.m. I have concerns amending the land use zoning of the property known as R.C. Willey Stores and parking lot from the general commercial to a mixed use zoning. Some of those include assumptions. The mixed use will be multifamily residential, medium to high density residential. If the new developer is planning a different commercial development, the existing zoning would suffice. This property does not lend itself to a single family low density development, as the cost to develop so few lots would price the lots out of the market value, and the street access to the lots in the northeast corner would leave very small lots for single family dwellings. This leaves multifamily development as the most likely option. Stormwater. At present, the parking lot of the R.C. Willey acts as a large detention pond that eases the initial shock on the stormwater conduit that runs along the west parking lot of R.C. Willey. This conduit runs from Winchester Street heading north to the north property line of R.C. Willey parking lot. It then turns west one block and then turns north again and empties into the stormwater line of Silver Shadow. Any change in use would seriously impact an already deficient stormwater system. Height restrictions. At present, the Murray City Height Regulation, Section 17.170.120, states that buildings cannot exceed 50 feet within 150 feet of a residential zoning. For all those homes on Labrum Avenue and the south side of Silver Shadow Drive, unobstructed views of the Wasatch Mountain Range would be lost. If, however, any development would be required to have a lower height, say 25 feet around the perimeter of the existing residential area, and gradually grow, terracing to the 50-foot height where the existing commercial buildings are now located, that concern may be mitigated. Buffer area. At present, the R.C. Willey development has a landscape buffer between the parking lot and the north and west property lines. If the standard setbacks for medium to high density is 10 feet, there will be little, if any, buffer between single-family residences and the adjoining multifamily residences. The area of a buffer is not only for sight obstructions, but also for light, noise, and smell pollution. One of the purposes or responsibilities of Murray City government and all of its divisions and departments is to mitigate the impact of its citizens, the residences. Central to a planning and zoning regulation is to preserve the existing residential life, safety, and feel of a community. I fear a mixed-use rezoning may lead to a diminishing of these three purposes for the surrounding residences. Sincerely, Burl Greenhall. Got a couple more, so hang in there. The next one is from Christy and Joe Hillcock. This was received today, December 3rd at 1:48 p.m. Jared, as homeowners of 778 East Silver Shadow Drive, which backs up to the property in question, we want to state for the record that we agree with all the comments and concerns submitted by Burl Greenhall. We have also listed additional concerns below regarding the planning and zoning change to mixed use from commercial. Number one, we currently have a nice view of the mountains from our backyard and a sense of privacy, as well as relative quiet in the evening/nights due to the R.C. Willey being closed at night. We are concerned that the proposed change in zoning will allow building of tall structures close to our south property line that will take away our views, our privacy, and our peace. These were the factors we considered when we purchased the property 9 years ago. We have a stormwater that runs through our backyard down the west side of our house and out to Silver Shadow. Potential increase in usage of this line due to changes to the parking lot behind us could lead to flooding of our home. We have worked diligently over the past 9 years to develop a mature and landscape our plans. Work on the stream water line and work on the stream water line would adversely affect the landscaping and thus diminish the value of our property. Number 3, we are concerned that an increase in population of the indicated area will lead to an increase in traffic of Silver Shadow Drive. This street is already often used as a cut through between 900 East and 725 East. And we believe this will only increase with this lot with being converted to multifamily structures. As Murray has also declined repeatedly to put in stop signs or speed bumps on Silver Shadows, the speed of non-residents is often above the limit of 25 miles per hour. This detracts from the safety of our neighborhood for our kids. Thank you for adding to our comments to the record. Sincerely, Christy and Joe Hillcock. And a comment from Brian Fedderson, received today, December 3rd at 2:14 p.m. Murray City Planning Commission. I am a resident living on Silver Shadow Drive, adjacent to the property of concern. These are large parcels, and I am concerned that mixed use will include a lot of high-density residential buildings. I am mainly concerned that this will add to the noise pollution, traffic, and crime in our neighborhood. We have seen that happen with the nearby James Point Apartments, except they have a greater buffer than would the R.C. Willey area. I am also concerned that this would encourage similar rezone/development to the large parcels that sit to the east, and then in parentheses, 84121 zip code. I have spent a small fortune in fixing and upgrading our home as a long-term resident, and I am hopeful any future development does not reduce my home's value. Thank you, Brian. The last one that we received prior to the meeting, anyway, was received from Fred Jones, and he does not give his residential address, but it was received today, December 3rd at 5:54 p.m. We have concerns that this spot zoning within a commercial zone, history has shown that split or spot zoning causes real estate functional obsolescence that ultimately devalues adjacent properties and creates blight. It becomes very unfair to the other property owners. We would strongly recommend that the Planning Commission, that they deny the rezoning or consider rezoning the whole area to be consistent. Thanks, Fred W. Jones. And that's all we have received prior to the meeting. We can check to see if we've received any during the hearing.
We have not received any during the hearing to read that I can see.
Now, Jared, how do we do this with people that would like to speak during the public comment portion?
Zach can make it so. Zach, Master of Ceremonies, can basically allow them to speak. And then otherwise, we run it just like we would if it were live. They get their 3 minutes.
Zach, one thing that I would like to emphasize that we do with all of our live meetings, when we did have them almost a year ago, is that we did require that additional comments present new information, concerns, etc. We don't want to have a lineup of people coming up and saying exactly the same thing for several minutes, person after person after person. That doesn't accomplish anything. If these people would like to come on and say that they support the previous comments and just summarize those very quickly, that's fine. But I won't tolerate people just droning on and on and on with the same information that we have just been presented.
Great. So I have only had one person raise their hand at this point. So I am going to unmute. Hold on one moment. Okay, Mick McClasson, sorry, you are able to speak.
All right, thank you. Mick McCaslin, Labrum Avenue, Murray, Utah, 84107. I think I'd like to point out three basic concerns. One is the one that's probably been mentioned several times, and that's height and proximity of buildings to the residences around the perimeter of the property. But that's probably the least of my personal concerns. The top two, one is that was kind of alluded to the storm drain situation, but there is a flooding problem on the east end of Labrum Avenue. The only reason you don't hear about it too much is Burl Greenhall's nice enough to go out there and throw a piece of plywood over the storm drain in the R.C. Willey parking lot, and it acts like a check valve and slows it down. So the parking lot then becomes the detention pond that he mentioned. Otherwise, there's a couple of houses that would suffer property damage probably every single year as a result of the storm drain that's inadequate. And I think there's a lot of ways that the modifications to this property could do that worse than what it currently is. So I think that's a big concern. The other concern I have would be the temptation to say, well, gee, we've got a lot of cars coming in off of 9th East or off of Winchester. We need to find ways for families to get in and out of there without adding traffic to those, and pushing Labrum Avenue through as a street into what's currently the R.C. Willey parking lot on the west side. And we see frequently, almost daily, I would say, cars coming down this street trying to get into that parking lot. And frankly, they're in a big hurry all the time. And I don't want to see that street become a thoroughfare for commercial traffic. So I think it can work, the mixed use plan. I'm not adamantly opposed to the idea. Those would be my big concerns, is that those were addressed, and ideally they'd be addressed with some kind of rider or caveat or whatever the right terminology is in the change of zoning, that those things were considered. A way it might work, and I'm not saying this as a suggestion, but just illustrate what I'm saying. If there were a detention pond created on the northeast corner of the park, it's currently the parking lot, that could be green space for the residents that live there. It would preserve a lot of the mountain views for people. It would ensure that street didn't go through, and it would resolve the flooding problem at no cost to the city of Murray. So I think there's a way to get there. So I won't say I'm adamantly opposed to the idea of changing the zoning. Again, those are the big concerns from my perspective, and I think probably all of the people on Labrum Avenue would echo the same concerns.
Thank you, Mr. McCaslin. I appreciate that. Any other comments pending?
We do. Hold on just one moment. Okay, we have John Peterson, and he should be unmuted now.
Yes, thank you. It's John Peterson, 653 South Pheasant Ridge Circle, Alpine, Utah. I represent Child Investment, the owners of the subject property, for the last 58 years. I'm also the commercial agent in commercial real estate as a developer and also selling this property. It has been no secret that we are not thrilled after that many years to have R.C. Willey leaving. We recognize that the building is 58 years old, again, in many parts. If you remember the old contemporary furniture store, the expansions over the years, etc. And we're disappointed, but we have searched thoroughly for the right developer to do this project. We had multiple offers that I sifted through, and it has been an interesting experience. We wanted to select, especially Mr. Child, which many of you know, who's almost 89 now. He said, John, I only want this sold to the right partner to do the right thing there, because he takes a lot of pride in his business over 60 years at R.C. Willey. So I bring it up. I appreciate everyone's comments. We've searched through big box retailers, the REIs, the Hobby Lobbies. Hotels, I've got a couple of them if someone wants them. They might as well be apartments right now. Office buildings, I've developed South Jordan's River Park Corporate Center and also Thanksgiving Point, Silicon Slopes. And it's very challenging. Office is not an option, nor will it be in any time soon, in my opinion. You'll see service retail, in my opinion, and then this mixed use. I am confident that the Boyer Company will work diligently with Murray City and put up a first-class development. And so I appreciate your time. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for considering this. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson. Do we have additional people waiting?
I do not show anybody else
with that
with a raised hand.
I am going to take the liberty of closing the public comment portion. And prior to bringing it back up to additional comments or questions from commission members, I just wanted to take a second and add just a personal experience that I've had relating to a major concern of at least a couple of the public comments. The storm drain issue on Labrum Avenue. I worked for Murray City for over 30 years. And the last 10 years of my tenure there was in Public Works Department. And they are absolutely correct that every time there is any kind of a thunderstorm or a severe snowmelt, the amount of water that is directed from the R.C. Willey parking lot to that storm drain at the east end of Labrum is overwhelming. I spent a couple of different nights on a couple of different storms in the garage of an individual there that had a beautiful, I believe it was a 67 Mustang, who was freaking out that the water was going to come up inside the car. And we efforted everything we could to mitigate the storm water that was happening there. So that is a real concern. And any kind of redevelopment of this property presents a great opportunity for the city to correct those problems. The addition of a retention pond is absolutely a great solution. And you get a quality developer and the city engineer is involved and they know about these problems. And this is an opportunity to fix those problems and to make the neighborhood a better place and to have less issues with these things. And so I view this as an opportunity to kind of correct some things and also to, the zoning itself. Again, I want to emphasize, we don't have a project right now. This is strictly a zoning issue, a future land use and a zoning issue. And I think that personally, this is a great opportunity to deal with things in the best way possible. So with that, I'll open it up to any other questions or comments from commission members, and anything that you would like to ask the applicants, please do so.
I just have one quick one. So again, to Labrum Avenue, the likelihood of opening that up and moving that or moving traffic through that street is not likely, right? That's private property that abuts on, and there would have to be purchases of that, and just not something we're interested in.
We'd have to purchase these properties to push Labrum through. It's not a full dead end stub. It was because of R.C. Willey. It was never anticipated to go through after that point. I guess it was a number of years ago, clearly, but yeah, I don't see that happening. It's almost 10 acres. It's big enough with 9th East and Winchester. They're big enough streets that we can get people in and out without needing to bleed into the neighborhood at all. I wouldn't see that being an issue, no.
Thanks.
Good question, though.
Okay. One final comment. I would like to add that, if and when a project is presented, the city has a lot more leeway in dealing with a residential mixed use project that backs onto this existing neighborhood than they would if hotels were to be placed there. If the zoning stayed the same, we don't want another short-term stay or long-term stay or whatever type of hotel, but that could go in there and there would be very little that the city could do to prevent that under the existing zoning requirements in that. And so, I think we're looking at trying to protect the sanctity of the existing neighborhood and doing the best that we can. And as far as what's been presented to us, I'm personally in favor of this type of rezone. And as has been stated several times, we're going to see a lot more of this. You look at a big box that is not occupied right now, or is aging, or is in transition. This is the future of these properties.
Jared?
Yes.
So up until this point, mixed use zoning has only been in certain designated parts of the city, mostly around the track station.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, a lot of the concerns from the residents was privacy and how, changing obviously from commercial is going to affect the privacy. Can you speak to implementing a mixed use zoning next to a residential zone? Like we have not done that yet. Is that right?
Yeah. The only, I would do it in two ways. I think I would reiterate what Chairman Markham was just saying. We have a lot of tools within the approval process for a mixed-use development to start to deal with those things. So, for example, for starters, you can't have heights. No matter, there are taller buildings in mixed-use zones typically, but this is a fairly suburban area of the city. It's not like the central city, and we do have a rule that says next to a single-family zone boundary, which is all of this north and west property line, you can't have buildings that are taller than 50 feet. And I think as Mr. McCloskey mentioned, it would be nice if we could do some things to preserve some of the views and some of that privacy. That 50 or that within 100 feet of that residential zone boundary, you can't have more than 50 feet of height. That's intended to start doing that. But remember too, that when the Planning Commission reviews a project, you're going to be reviewing it under development review, under design review standards, and you can mitigate impacts with additional conditions per that development. So if you get into this area and want to see additional distances or push the development toward buffering these areas, that's what we'll clearly try to do. The Planning Commission did that in the Van Winkle Crossing mixed use project that we did. Again, we had the shorter of the 3 or 4 different buildings was placed near the residential boundary to do exactly that. And I think we don't have it queued up and ready to go, but Zach did a nice job of showing the difference in height between the building they were proposing and the Kmart that had always been there. RC Willey is lower than that. It's about 5 feet lower than that Kmart building, but that 100 feet does provide most of that view shed should remain intact. It's not going to stay completely the same. I can't say that, but we do have methods with which we can deal with that. And we've done it only once with Van Winkle Crossing. So we're kind of on a learning curve, but we'll take that all into account in reviewing a project. We'll try to be very careful with that. And I know the commission's sensitive to those kind of things. And you do have that kind of flexibility within the review process. The zoning will allow what it allows, but you have some ability to mitigate impacts of whatever development is proposed within reason. So that's what I would suggest there.
Lisa, you had a comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from commission members at this time? Okay, well, if not, I would entertain a motion, and we've had one presentation essentially for 2 agenda items. And so I will need 2 amendments or two motions, one for the general plan and the other for the zone map amendment. So it's up to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Scott. That
we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 861 East Winchester and 6520, 6550, and 6580 South 900 East from general commercial to mixed use.
Thank you.
And I would second that motion.
Thank you, Travis. I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Travis Ney. that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map, redesignating the properties located at 861 West Winchester and 6520, 6550, and 6580 South 900 East from general commercial to mixed use. Please call for a vote.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Ney.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
And Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And now we have before us the zoning map designation. Additional amendment. All right, an additional motion, excuse me.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 861 East Winchester and 6520, 6550, and 6580 South 900 East from commercial CD to mixed-use development.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got it,
Thank you, Lisa. I have a motion by Travis Ney, a second by Lisa Milkevich, that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 861 West Winchester and 6520, 6550, and 6580 South 900 East from CD commercial development to MU mixed use. Please call for a vote.
Mr. Ney.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
And Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Thank
And I would like to emphasize that this is a recommendation we are forwarding to the City Council. There will be additional opportunity for public comment with the City Council, and the final decision does rest with them. But I want to thank everyone for their public comments this evening. I was very impressed with the number of comments and also the legitimate comments that were put forth. It was very educational and enjoyable. Thank you. All right. With that, we will move to our next agenda item, and that is the sports mall properties. And numbers 10 and 11 will be dealt with simultaneously on the presentation, much as the Boyer Company application for the R.C. Willey properties. Number 10, the first item is a general plan amendment from general commercial to mixed use. And the second is a zone map amendment from CD commercial development to MU mixed use. So it's kind of deja vu here with a little bit of a different address.
Okay, thank you. And I'll try to not be repetitive, but it bears some of the same things kind of bear here, and I'll move through this. So the sports mall property, I think everyone is familiar with. This is 900 East, and the sports mall is about 9.93 acres right here. In the past, it extended to other properties that have been sold off as well. So we're only dealing with the main sports mall building property in tonight's applications. They are the same as the previous agenda items. It's a general plan map amendment request and a zone map amendment request for many of the same reasons. The sports malls property owners are in a position where they feel like it's time to close the sports mall and sell in the near future, and want to rezone and entertain offers for mixed-use development on the site. Those have been the interested parties. Again, for a lot of the same reasons. 900 East has good frontage for some commercial aspect, and then the more isolated portions of the property could be used for residential to support that retail and the redevelopment of the property. It is in the same situation. It's in the CD zone, backed on the east and a little bit of the south by residential zoning. And that CD zone is supported by the general commercial category in the general plan. Much as we talked with before with the Winchester Street R.C. Willey property, this general commercial area did anticipate the inclusion of higher density housing in the future. It wasn't specifically made as it didn't support mixed use zoning, but it recognized that mixed uses were going to be a part of commercial development in the future. So they're supporting this application and our findings that we've provided to you. But then also, I wanted to point out so that you're aware, this is also right by one of the community center nodes that we had called out in the general plan's future land use map. And these, just because they don't come up very often, I wanted to reiterate for you so you remember. We identified intersections because of that nature of big boxes and the transitions that they are undergoing, and just the high traffic through these areas and the mix of residential and commercial that happens around these intersections anyway, that we wanted to be flexible in our thinking in the properties around these intersections. And the sports mall happens to fall in one of those, as does EOS Fitness and some of the other projects and properties around here. So that, again, further lends support from the general plan to the requested change to mixed use zoning. As we talked about with the differences in zoning, just for the record, Chairman Markham, I'll go ahead and reiterate that the different uses that are allowed in CD zoning versus mixed use zoning. So permitted and conditional uses in the CD zone include hotels and retail stores, restaurants and grocery stores, funeral homes, assisted living, personal services like beauty salons, business and professional services, entertainment and sports, which is what's been happening here already. Contractors, vehicle sales and rentals and repairs, convenience stores and gas stations. There aren't any residential uses allowed. Mixed use zones, or our mixed use zone, which is what's been requested, allow all those kinds of same things, with the exception that they don't allow vehicle sales or repair. They do allow some small contractors and manufacturing uses with some pretty heavy restrictions, and that's based on our application of mixed use zoning in other parts of the city, more toward the center of the city. And then they do also allow, as a part of a mixed use project, higher density housing, multifamily residential uses like townhomes and apartments and condominiums. Again, only as a part of a mixed use development. As staff looks at these properties, again, this is the same kind of building. It was built specifically to be the sports mall. It's operated for a long, long time. We had some good meetings with the owners, and believe me, in very much the same way that Mr. Peterson expressed the child's family's disappointment that R.C. Willie was leaving. The building has aged and the nature of the business has changed, and they're very sad about contemplating closing their doors. But the time they feel like has come, and as a planning staff, we've seen that already and had identified this property, much like we talked about before, as one of those that might shift to mixed uses. So we've anticipated in the master plans. It's, of course, this is actually in a different sewer district, Cottonwood, but we've met with Cottonwood District, who are also updating their sewer plan, and identified this property to them as one that would potentially need more sewer capacity associated with it. Transportation wise as well, we've started to look at that. So we are with those kinds of changes, and again, being sensitive to the fact that this would be a mixed use project, that we don't have a project at hand right now. We don't accept plans before the zone is changed, because that would be inappropriate, and we want to weigh the merits of the zoning that's being requested and all the kinds of things that could happen, as opposed to a specific plan that can fall through and then disappoint everyone and when things change. We are recommending approval of both of the amendment requests based on those findings that we provided and that we just kind of briefly covered here. We do feel like the general plan supports the change and the direction of retail in the city. This would preserve some retail use of the land and allow some new residences to come in and inject the property with some redevelopment money. So do you have any questions for staff? Thank you.
As I said, it's a little bit of deja vu here. So seeing no additional information requests from staff, we'll ask, is the applicant available? Oh, yes. Travis?
I just have a couple of quick clarifying questions.
Please.
First off, do we know what the depth of the property is from the east to the west property line?
I have not measured that, but I can probably tell you pretty quickly if you give me just a moment.
It's 9.93 acres or something, I believe.
9.93 acres.
Total, yeah.
But if you give me 1 second, I can tell you. So talk about something else to distract the
While
viewer.
Jared's doing that, I'm going to ask the property owner to raise their hand in the participant list so that I can unlock them when ready. Go ahead, Travis. Sorry.
And while Jared's looking at that, do we know there's not direct drive access to Wood Oak, correct?
No, it's through parking lots. There are parking lots that connect, but not directly. No, it's
okay. So right now,
sorry.
Right now, it's fair to say that their only actual access is off of 900 East. Then.
Yeah, their only true access is from 900 East.
Okay, thank
you. They
you.
might be able to work out shared accesses with other properties, and they have them currently. I don't know if those shared accesses would extend to a redevelopment or not. They'd have to figure all that out. It's 866 feet, the longest point from 9th East to the back property line.
So in theory, on 900 East, we could see height near 100 feet or taller.
You could, although I don't think that's likely, just because 900 East is probably where you're gonna see your corridor commercial.
To the commercial, yeah.
Yeah, these more sort of suburban village mixed use projects they're gonna have more frontage commercial as opposed to the under. But it could be like there could be units above them. We don't have a project.
Sure.
Would see ground floor commercial and units above them. Then maybe that would be a utilization of the height. I don't know. We just have to wait for a project.
Mr. Hall, I have I think it's a statement as much or more so than a question.
Sure.
But I'm excited about the growth in Murray. We're going to see big changes over the next few years, and change is positive. Growth is positive, especially when we have great staff that's directing it. So I think it'll be great. Having said that, will you reassure me that our city is way ahead of the ball? I mean, I'm just looking at all these different places in which we're putting in mixed use, which is good. It's the future. It's where our communities are going. But, the Kmart lot, now the sports mall, the RC Willing, maybe over by Blockbuster, Bonneville Apartments. We have a lot of locations now. So reassure me that we're ahead of the ball in schools, sewer, plumbing. So we'll have a new school before we have too many kids.
I can't speak to the schools as well as I'd like to be able to be honest. That's one area that we let them know what's going on, and they, as I understand it from talking to a few of the people in school districts and the way they do their planning, I have a lot of family members in school districts too. I've talked about this a number of times. They're always kind of playing catch up with all the cities, trying to figure out where to move things. You build a school and the population shifts out and you have to bus everybody for a few years, and then the populations move back and it changes to a different area. And you've got, by the nature of school building, you have them in all the wrong places as soon as you got them. But we do the best we can to make sure they know where we're putting them. But in the end too, you have to remember that those school districts are served by the property values that come in for them. And these kinds of projects generate a lot more property taxes that go to those school districts, serve them. So these projects aren't not pulling their weight in terms of providing funds for the schools to do what they need to do. I would say that definitively. That's about all I could really say to that. As far as sewer and transportation and all those other kinds of items, we are running to catch up outside the city. The middle part of the city where we initially laid down mixed use zoning in the city center district, the MCCD, the city years ago planned for 100 units to the acre and did all the public infrastructure planning to handle that. We didn't think about it going outside of the city, so we are playing catch up in the new master plans. But I'm very encouraged by the things we've seen on that would deal with this part of the city, 9th East to the south end of the city, especially State Street. We can make it work. We had some concerns, but we've been working with Public Works over the last couple of months, 3 months really. And yeah, I'm very encouraged by the things that came out of the studies they've been doing in the modeling. So yeah, we're getting there.
Anecdotally, I'd like to address that as well, in that, I know that Commissioner Patterson and Commissioner Milkevich are very involved in the school district, and I would suggest, reaching out to them and letting them know that they should be hiring. I read an article that, school districts need to be hiring urban planners to understand this kind of growth, and that is something that they have not traditionally done. And that's why they continually have that kind of reactionary thing instead of planning forward for that. So that's just anecdote. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll shut up there.
That's fine. I've been, and to build on Zach's point just a little bit, and I know it's late and you guys are probably done listening to me, but in Murray, I know we had I can't remember the name of Rock's replacement. Rock is an easy name to remember, but Rock was very involved and a good guy to talk to about this stuff. And he understood the basic principles that we were talking about and handled it well. And I know that that'll continue with Murray District. They're very much dialed into what we're doing. And they ask all the time with different meetings. Skylar, Melinda's telling me Skylar Gall. I won't forget that now either, because Skylar. So, and then in Davis, when I worked in Farmington, Davis County had an actual planner that worked on their school district staff and would call me about different things that were happening, and all the other cities in Davis County as well. It is something they should look at doing even more of. They ought to run full departments, in my opinion, but that's just me. But yeah, we're trying to keep abreast of all the kinds of things that this kind of village, more suburban village mixed use development will do to us. But on the main, I think it's going to be good for a lot of good in a lot of ways for the city. It's an injection of new life. Change is always hard. These are the hardest applications we do, rezones like this. But they have the greatest potential to be really cool areas and to inject new life into areas in the city.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I think it's also, to play on that, I've lived now and certainly seen the neighborhoods change just in terms of the numbers of kids, the demographics. I think the demographics of our city are just changing. We're not going to see as many larger families, with mixed use and things. So, I think it's exciting to see where the city's going. I think these projects are very exciting. They'll bring in more, more vibrant economy at times, I think, and not the big box, more character. And so, I think, Commissioner Milkevich's concerns are always valid as far as, making sure the schools and the infrastructures that can support it. But I think, it's really exciting. It's exciting to see how our city is transforming, as opposed to, maybe some other places that are not being quite as proactive in some of the zoning. So I think it's great. And, obviously, I have 5 kids that are all in school, and 4 of them now, and I'd love to have more kids, but that's not what's happening to our city. The families with a lot of kids are moving to other places, either from the real estate prices or, available housing or whatever. So I don't think that there'll be massive impacts to the schools. But again, I don't know. We don't know what they look like. We talked about the other application being studios and those things. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's exciting. And I think the staff does a tremendous job planning for growth, and it's exciting to see, how these developments will really pan out over the next 5 years.
Thank you. Excellent comments. I appreciate all the comments from commission members as always. And, everybody's got a little bit different viewpoint, and that's what makes a great commission, is we get all those together and we hopefully make the best decision for Murray City. So with that, Zach, do you have the applicant online?
I do, and he should be available to speak.
Bruce Broadhead, representing the Sports Mall.
Mr. Broadhead, could you give us your address just for the record, please?
5445 South, 900 East, Murray, Utah.
Thank you.
84117.
Is there anything you would like to add in addition to the staff presentation concerning this application?
No, I think the staff has done a fine job of describing the project and the options and at this time.
Okay. Are there questions from Planning Commission members for the applicant? Okay. Well, seeing none at this time, I would like to open the public comment portion of this agenda item. And Jared, do we have items that have been submitted ahead of the meeting, emails?
We do not.
Okay.
We did not receive any emailed comments. We did not receive phone calls.
Okay.
Susan, did I miss
notices sent to the neighborhood to the east of the sports mall property?
Yeah, significant number of notices. I think we sent a total of 130 some odd notices on this project.
Okay.
Most of them up in this area.
Okay, yeah, that would primarily be it. Everything else is just commercial, minimal commercial right around the perimeter of the sports mall. So, okay. Well, with that, I'll take some time to see if we have any individuals watching the meeting online that would like to comment. So we'll take a few moments and see if we have some additional comment. Then, thank you.
Thanks.
And then I will just add that if there's anybody online right now that would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Thank you, Zach. Well, staff, how are we doing? Any hand raising?
We're not receiving any emails.
I just had one raise their hand. So
Excellent,
yes.
Excellent. We'd like to hear
Hold
from
on one moment. Okay, Fred Jones, you are able to unmute yourself and make a comment if you'd like.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Jones. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. Fred Jones, 5383 South, 900 East. I've enjoyed hearing the comments tonight regarding these two projects and the rezoning. I do have great concern about it. As we start to do this, I can understand Mr. Broadhead's desires to get the maximum value out of his property, and same with Mr. Childs to have a development there. But someone has to pay the price for these changes. And all of those homes that live adjacent to these properties, when they go to sell their homes and they look and say, oh gosh, there's a 5-story building right next to your home. That's a pretty big discrepancy between a single family occupancy and a multiple story building, 5 stories. I think the price is paid by the citizens of Murray City. They pay the price for the development because their properties become blighted. They can't get the value out of their properties anymore. And I understand that you can put restrictions on this, and I understand that you were indicating tonight that they had no other access to Wood Oak, but they are, and they're sharing those common drives and approaches to Wood Oaks, which leads them to the light there. And I guess my concern is this, is that you're sending a recommendation to our city council to approve this, and I think we're sending it unprepared. I don't think we have enough answers or solutions. We're looking at this project and saying we're ahead of the times. Well, I don't believe that to be the case. As we look at Salt Lake City, we can see the impact that they've had with their track zones and the multiple story buildings and the problems that they're now having in Salt Lake City as a result of that. I would hope that Murray City would take some time and look what's happening to South Salt Lake and look what's happening to Salt Lake City, talk to their police departments, talk to their fire departments, look at the challenges that are going on before we jump into this too quickly. I think there's a lot of other answered questions. I'm a little bit concerned about the notice. We got one notice. I understand in talking to some of the other residents there, they did not receive notices. I made a personal call to Jared and did not get a call back. In fact, I tried twice to get information about this situation so I could be prepared to discuss it and to give you good comments. I would hope you'd postpone this and get the residents involved and get the people involved in the community and let them have an opportunity to hear this. I don't believe the notices went out, and I don't think there was good communications coming from planning and zoning office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to say that I don't believe there's any basis to assert that the notices did not go out. I have never had that assertion made in the 9 years that I have been on this planning commission, and I really don't take that seriously, to be very honest with you. Without evidence backing that assertion up, I won't even consider that valid. As far as communicating with the staff, in all the experiences that I've had. It's been exemplary. Other commission members can relate their own experience, but it's rare that people are not able to communicate with the staff. My one rebuttal to slowing this down and postponing this is that we will have, once again, we'll have much more control over any future development on this piece of property by initiating a zoning change than we would if it remains in the current commercial state. The impact on the neighborhood is going to be far greater if this stays commercial than if it's a managed mixed use development. And so that's just my opinion. I welcome other commission members' input. In fact, I would look forward to it, please.
Jared, or excuse me, Phil,
yes,
let me just say real quick, there is a legal notice posted in both the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News anytime one of these proposals is going to be heard. And so if on the very slim chance someone didn't get a notice in the mail, it would have been in the newspaper. And like you, I've had nothing but, positive experience as a citizen with the planning and zoning department over at Murray City. I have never had someone not answer the questions that I've needed answered. So I'm a little skeptical on postponing. I don't see the point. I mean, as much as anybody, I'm sad to see the sports mall go because we have great memories from our kids going there when they were in high school. They were kind enough to sponsor project graduation for a number of years and have the students there. So, it's sad to have to close because of the current economic situation in the valley.
I agree, and I'm personally. I will give you a personal opinion on this, and I have not done this prior to this meeting. Interjected my own personal feeling here, but putting forth baseless allegations that the notices did not go out without providing fact is something that this type of allegation is becoming very prevalent right now. And unless people can back up serious allegations, I am not going to entertain them. And as chairman of this commission, I will not entertain that this evening at all. So that's the end of my diatribe.
Mr. Chairman,
Please, Lisa.
another thought to that. I wonder if our residents' comments, perhaps he didn't hear our long and lengthy discussion on the prior items. I feel like maybe this item, the discussion's been somewhat less or a little bit more minimal because we covered a lot of what would be discussed in the prior items. So I just want to state that. And then the other thing I wanted to state is I felt like some of his comments were comments that we would typically hear in the next step once a project is actually submitted. Once we actually have an idea of what's being built there, then we can have more discussion about how we feel about it and if it's in compliance and how it's affecting the neighbors.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, and I will say, guys, just so you know, I try to be available when people call, when people email. I have been out of the office more in the last week since the notices went out on this project. Actually, I had a COVID quarantine going on, and so my access has been a little bit limited. And then I was out sick for 2 days as well, which doesn't happen with me. But I don't,
Jared. I don't think there's really any reason to apologize. There's no reason to apologize.
I'm not. I'm just saying it's possible I missed a call or something. I don't normally, but in the last couple of days, it would have been easy for me to miss a call. So I can talk to whoever wants to talk about it. And it's still got to go forward to council. We can.
Absolutely. This is strictly a recommendation to city council. There will be ample opportunity for additional public comment. And I hope that any public comment that is made will be backed up by fact.
Thank you.
We will also end up sending out another round of public notices for the public hearing with the city council, who is the deciding body for a general plan amendment and a zone map amendment. So We did mail out 109 notices, plus we send them to all the affected entities. I think on a project of this size, we do 500 feet of a notification area. So, that's something that we as staff take a lot of pride in and make sure that those get out and sent out in time. And we've actually postponed items when there has been an issue. If there was something that was incorrect in the public notice, we really work diligently to get that correct. And there could be a case where one neighbor gets one and a next door neighbor does not, because one is within the 500 feet distance requirement and the one is outside that. And going back to Commissioner Wilson's comments, that's why we try to cover all those bases and have notifications published in the newspaper, and we have them on our website, and there's a way to subscribe to public meeting notices and agendas. And so there could be some accuracy to that maybe a neighbor didn't and the one next door did. That would be the reason for a case like that.
Thank you, Melinda.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, I know we try to obviously not say the same thing over and over again, but I guess I want to say I appreciate all the citizen, input, and I would encourage the citizens to use the things that have been said. I subscribe to all the city council agendas, things. I get them in emails. You can get the packets. The packet that we get as a commission is posted on the website. So, we're not getting any information. The last applicant, there was a comment about the city trying to push it through and integrity and these type of things. And, the city's trying to be responsive. The city's trying to be responsive to applicants that come in. In my 9 years on the commission, I have not seen anything where the city's giving us different information that they would not offer to the public. The public, if they want the information about applications, they can go read the packet. It's there. It's the same information. They can drive by the staff. There are multiple people there. Certainly people get missed at times, as illustrated by Melinda, but for the most part, I think the city does a phenomenal job at trying to be transparent and trying to be upfront with what's going on. But they also do have to be responsive to landowners and applicants that come in. I mean, how successful would our city be if we just kicked everything down the road to make sure until everybody felt comfortable with it? Nothing would ever happen. And so I think it's very, very important that we understand as the commission, as a city, and as citizenry that we do everything we can to try to give the options for people to be educated. And we want to have good, solid discussions based on the information that's there and not on hearsay and different things. So again, as Commissioner Milkevich said, questions that are asked, there's going to be more rounds to bring questions and concerns about home values and impact when applications come. But right now, we're considering a land use, a zone amendment, and there is no application. So anyway, I agree with what's been said and appreciate the work of the staff. And Jared, for future, you're just not allowed to be sick. I mean, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but you're not allowed to be sick.
Yeah, no, believe me, I never want to be this sick again. This is the first tonight, 5:30, 5:45 is the first time I've been back in the office since before Thanksgiving, since Tuesday or Monday. I can't even remember what day I had to go out with the COVID deal. And so I've been getting information in pieces and stuff, and people have been trying to cover for me, but it's, a little odd.
With that, you know what? I have not closed the public comment portion of the meeting. Do we have any pending comments?
Let me check.
No, we do not.
Thanks.
The public comment portion is closed, and I apologize for the meeting being somewhat hijacked and having to go on an extended justification of our policies and procedures when I don't think it's personally necessary. So with that, if anyone has any questions or comments for the applicant or staff, I would appreciate those coming forth at this time. Okay. If not, I would love to entertain a motion on the general plan future land use map motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion.
Please, Ned.
First, I'd like to say that I've been a longtime member of the Sports Mall. They're a great asset to the city. They've been for a long time before I ever became a member. Not just to the residents of Murray, but to many different schools, universities, sports teams, and everybody that I know that has been to the Sports Mall has had only good things to say. It's been a great facility, so I hate to see it leave. However, I make a motion to forward the recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the general plan future land use map, redesignating the property located at 5445 South 900 East from general commercial to mixed use.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Let's see. That was Maren? Maren?
Yep.
Thank you, Maren.
Add that, yes, I'm so sad about the sports ball closing. My kids both actively are attending things at the sports mall, and they swim on the swim team, and they do taekwondo, and they do tennis, and so it is heartbreaking that it is closing.
Well, before I call for the vote, I will tell you, I actually sent out personal notice to several people that I know because this is such a big deal. And the company I work for, Ace Recycling and Disposal, they are huge handball sponsors, and they sponsor a professional handball tournament at the Sports Mall, and they have so for the last 15 years. They fly the world's best handball players in from Ireland to compete at this facility. And so, they're not exactly happy either. But you know what? If you want to control what happens to a facility or a piece of property, own it. And with that, I will call for a vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Mr. Ney.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
And Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Passes unanimously. We have a motion or an application in front of us for a zoning map designation for the property previously addressed from CD commercial development to MU mixed use. Do I have a motion?
Chair, I'll make a motion. I will say also, let's not forget that it's a great place to get a beer and a burger. I know all you athletes want to talk about the health benefits, but there's some health benefits in walking over and getting a beer and a burger. I will make a recommendation that we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation for the property located at 5445 South 900 East from CD commercial development to MU mixed use.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Lisa. I have a motion by Travis Ney, a second by Lisa Milkevich, that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at 5445 South 900 East from CD commercial development to MU mixed use. Please call for vote.
Mr. Ney.
Yes.
Ms. Milkevich.
I have to say, I too am sad to hear the spin classes will be leaving. Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Sadly, yes.
Mr. Woodbury.
Yes.
Mr. Hacker.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
And Mr. Markham.
Yes. And Travis, I agree wholeheartedly with you. However, that business can hopefully stay in business there and be one of the commercial pads that are involved in the redevelopment.
Hint.
All right. Well, with that, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Does staff have additional information that we need to hear?
Just real quickly, I will let you all know that as sad as you all are about the sports mall closing, I guarantee, having met with the owners, who are not as sad as they are. I've never seen anybody that sad. It's a hard one, but we do have a nice full agenda coming your way on the 17th of December as well. And I know it's holidays, so if you're not going to be around or available, let us know.
Scott, are you good with chairing that, or would you like me to do that?
As of right now, I should be able to chair.
Okay, just let me know.
I'll let you know. So.
No problem. I'll be available if you need it.
Yeah, I should be able to. I don't have any plans to be out of town.
Okay. Thank you.
It'll be a good fun meeting as well. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up for it. That's really all I needed to let you know. I just want to make sure we've got a full quorum for that meeting. So
with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ned.
I'll second.
Good night, everybody.
We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Chair.